Bob, whatever you need help on, I came in at the end of the conversation. I'll help you.
Thank you.
We'll cover that later. Is Mayor Keffer here? Because she is also our flag. Oh, there she is. Mayor Keffer, you're Vince Rangione. I see him twice.
Little confusion with the
new links. Yeah. Oh, cool. Awesome. Okay, so it's 7:01. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for the Upper Darby Township Council meeting for April 21st, 2021. If we can all stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Mayor Keffer has the flag in her screen, and then we will have a moment of silence. Okay. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with
liberty
liberty
and justice for all.
And now please remain standing for a moment of silence for Frances Kelly, Chief Sawyer's mother, Edwin J. Truitt, and in honor of George Floyd and all others who have passed away. Thank you. At this point in time, Council Secretary Billups, can you please give us a roll call?
Yes, Council President Wentz. Councilor Tunis.
Good afternoon, Upper Darby.
Councilor Billups is here. Councilor Silva.
Here.
Councilor Blackwell.
Here, here.
Councilor Gwynn.
Present.
Councilor Burke.
Present.
Councilor Siddiq.
Present.
And Councilor Faralia is excused for right now. She may
Yes.
join us later, right?
Yep.
Councilor Barnett.
I saw him. If he too, if he,
Here.
oh, there he
He's
is.
here.
Yep,
He's here.
he's here. Great.
Councilor Wagner
Here.
and Council President Wentz.
Here.
All here except for Councilor Lisa, who is excused, and she may join us later.
Yes. Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, next up we have rules of meeting decorum. Upper Darby Township Council and residents will maintain professional respect for each other. Council encourages free speech, however, civility is required, which would prohibit threats, profanity, scandalous, impertinent, and redundant comment, or any comment the discernible purpose of which is to disrupt or prevent the conduct of business of the meeting. Also, I'd like to take note that this is the first time that we are using webinar for our council meeting. Please be patient with us as we work out any kinks that may arise. In theory, we shouldn't have any, but just in case. Also want to point out that this is the first time that we are including in-person public comments. Each resident will be given 3 minutes to speak, and then their mic will be muted. Any written comments will be read into the minutes if time allows after the in-person residents speak. If any written comments get missed, they will be sent to council so that council can respond accordingly. Okay, so all that being said, we're gonna move on to public forum. Oops, sorry, I dropped something. So I'm gonna If everyone can mute their mics except for Councillor Billups and myself, we are the timekeepers. Ms. Phillips, when her alarm goes off, that's 2 minutes and 30 seconds of a resident speaking. So if any reason they stop speaking and council responds to something, we pause their time and then continue while they, once they start speaking again. And I'm the timekeeper for 3 minutes. Okay, just so that we know what we're doing. All right, so.
Council President, once the first speaker who signed in was Afsara Ahana.
Okay. And is she here?
They're here. I've been asking them to unmute. And
Oh, yes, I am here. Sorry about that.
Okay, great.
Okay, so Ms. Phillips and go. Go ahead, Safara.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just here for the first meeting. This is my first time attending. I just wanted to know what the Upper Darby Township Council is doing right now. That's all. So I'm just here to observe.
Okay. Great. We're doing a whole variety of things. The agenda's on the website at upperdarby.org, where you can find the agenda for tonight's evening. We're covering a whole variety of things that you'll get to sit back and enjoy.
Sounds good. All right, looking forward to hearing what's going on here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Okay, and Ms. Dobbins, who's next?
The next person who signed in was Terry Bradley.
Okay, and Ms. Phillips and Ms. Bradley, go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you have an echo. Let me see if we're all muted.
Ms. Bradley, have you joined from 2 devices? That often is what the cause of the echo is.
I'm only,
Pause our time.
I'm sorry, I'm only on my computer. But it is echoey when you all speak, it's echoey.
Ms. Bradley, I can see that you are both here as a panelist. You're in the attendee list twice. So is there a possibility that somebody else has joined?
No.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to try again?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And go.
Okay. This is Terry Diaz Bradley, 1213 Morgan Avenue, Drexel Hill, PA, and I'm starting my timer as well. Mayor Barbara Ann Keffer made an announcement at last month's council meeting in which she admitted that she had made a unilateral decision to ignore public safety laws as relates to diseased and hazard trees, regulations that are still good law and have been for many decades. Colleagues and predecessors of the very council that sits here today legislated to protect the residents of Upper Darby Township from neglected trees that have become old and dangerously hazardous to the health and public safety of our fellow residents. Damage to home and cars is an additional threat. As she stated, the hazardous tree problem in our township had become and continues to be so prevalent that she feels if she enforced the law for one person, she might have to do it for everyone, creating what she called, quote unquote, a slippery slope of law enforcement. Despite that being the very nature of her job and overall duties, she advised the residents of this township that if we wanted to be protected from hazardous trees, we should just sue each other rather than rely on her enforcement of public safety regulations of the township. With that statement, she not only left us residents vulnerable to a rampant hazardous condition, she stripped council of its authority. Not a single council person protested their own or their colleagues' dispossession of power. To allow Barbara Ann Keffer to pick and choose which public safety laws she will enforce and which she will ignore is not only condoning a dereliction of her own duties, it is a flagrant disregard for council's own. I have filed numerous right to know requests for information I'm clearly entitled to, but which Barbara Ann Keffer has instructed her administrators to ignore or deny. I have appealed to the Pennsylvania Office of Open Records, and the township's lawyers have been engaged to fight the appeal, all at great expense to Upper Darby's taxpayers, which makes the situation not only tedious and obstructionist, but terribly costly for the residents of our township. During her campaign, Mayor Keffer presented herself as the quote-unquote transparency candidate, which contradicts the manner in which the mayor has decided to mishandle requests for information. She and the newest members of council knocked on thousands of doors, begged us for our vote, assuring us that you had identified the problems in this township and had come up with solutions to said problems, and we're going to implement those said solutions in a fair, equitable way. While we voters kept our end of the bargain, it appears the mayor and council candidates have forgotten promises made. The law is still the law, and we rely on our leaders to protect us from hazardous conditions and the people who flagrantly flout regulations legislated to specifically protect us. I think I can safely say that the residents of Upper Darby not only expected better, we deserve much, much better. Thank you for listening.
Great, thank you. You were within the perfect time. Okay, thank you for your comments. Our solicitors have responded to there was a letter that we received over a month ago from our solicitors in reference to this.
And we
issue.
Councilor Wentz,
Yes.
we read the letter publicly. We explained our position. Our position has not changed, and we have not received any new information. So,
okay, thank you. Councilman Burke.
Yes, thank you, President Wentz. Are we fighting this in court, Sean?
no, we're not fighting it in court. All we're dealing with is a right to know request.
Okay, there was a comment that Ms. Bradley made that she filed a petition or something at a higher court.
No.
I just wanted to know if it was true, that's all.
Ms. Bradley has filed approximately 21 right-to-know requests and corresponding appeals, many of which have not been timely, according to the Office of Open Records, a number of which she's withdrawn because they were not in the proper format and didn't request actual records. All of this is sort of well known by Ms. Bradley. We've spent a lot of time on it, and this is public forum. It's not really a time for exchange of this type.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Bradley. We will look into it. Ms. Dobbins?
Our next person to sign in was Lee Jordan.
Okay. And Miss Councilwoman Billups, I didn't hear your timer go off for the 2.5 minutes.
It went off.
Okay, can you
Yeah.
turn up your volume because I didn't hear it?
I'll
Okay.
put the phone closer to the
Okay,
computer.
and I'm turning up my volume too.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so Miss Billups, myself, and Miss Jordan, go. Oh, pause. Miss Jordan, you need to unmute yourself. We're gonna restart. Can you hear us? She's gone. Wait. Miss Dobbins, can we get Miss Jordan back?
I'm not sure why she left or if she's having technical details. She did also email in comments, so we will leave those as part of the record.
Okay.
If
We can
she
go
does
to
not return.
Okay, we'll go to the next. Oh, there she is. Oh, there she is. There she is. Okay. So you need to unmute yourself, Miss Jordan.
Yeah.
There
Okay.
you go.
I just did. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, and timer wise, go.
Oh, okay. So I had sent an email just about, first of all, thank you for letting me participate in this pilot. And I guess I'm piggybacking a little bit off of Ms. Bradley's comments about just responses from requests to the township building, concerns that community members have. I mean, sometimes I feel like, weeks will go by and we don't have any requests. And I guess I need to understand the process. If there is a concern, what community residents should do. I mean, I know we email them, but sometimes we don't get responses. So that's my first thing. I guess, am I supposed to talk through everything? I'm a little bit confused because I thought this was at the end of the meeting. 'Cause I
Yeah,
sent an email too.
pausing your time. It's not a school board meeting, so we do
Okay.
things a little differently.
Okay.
But to answer that question, you take photos of something you see that's not kosher or whatever that you have concerns about. You send them to request@upperdarby.org. If you want to CC a at-large council person or your district council person, you can do that as well so that they know what you're sending in. And then you'll get a reference number back, and then that's how you can track whatever your concerns are later, so you can follow up on it.
Okay. And then my other concern is, and I stated this in my email, which you all received, is the opening up of these meetings to the public. I mean, we do have plenty of venues in Upper Darby Township. We can follow CDC guidelines, social distancing, masking. I did talk to the school district today. They are willing to open up the some of their venues, Beverly Hills Middle School, Drexel Hill Middle School. I served on the school board. There are places that you actually can have meetings. I think you should continue with the virtual, but I think you also should allow people to attend the meetings. If you really want the full transparency, that's my suggestion what to do. We are a township of 85,000 plus community members. And I would just like to see that moving forward with the next meeting. And that's my comment. My other comment, which was emailed, was about just the trash and the underage drinking in Pilgrim Park. It's been a concern. It was addressed last year. I'd like to see that addressed again. It was addressed by the mayor and the superintendent of police.
Did you send that to the request line?
That the trash.
The trash and
no, that was just my email tonight.
Okay, so can you send those concerns to the request line?
Yes.
So that way it can go through the proper channels within the township administration.
Yes. And the same thing about the opening up of the meetings?
That's in my realm.
Okay, all right.
You put the ball in the right court.
Okay.
It's something that we've been talking about. We're just not necessarily there yet. There's a lot of other things to get into place before we're ready to do that. But
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. It's definitely something on the horizon. We're
Okay.
just not ready for May though.
Okay.
But it's definitely something we want to do.
All right. And also, Ms. Wentz, I wanted to mention that when I did get on the township website and I clicked your page and contact, it just takes you to a blank screen. It has your phone number, but it doesn't have your email address. So that might be something you want to look at, like when it has your profile.
Right. And I got to change the profile, and that's why everyone calls me.
Okay. All right. That's it. I'm finished. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Great. Okay. Ms. Dobbins?
The next person to sign in is not present, so we'll move on to the next person.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Phillips, Ms. Kennedy.
Could you just give me like 10 seconds because it disconnected? I just want to get the right screen on the screen. I apologize.
No, you're good.
It was disconnected. Just give me
you're good. I can see you.
Okay, just give me 1 second, just because I have a bunch of tabs open. I'm sorry. While I'm setting that up, I just wanted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
And time. Go.
Okay. Just wanted to quickly second what Ms. Jordan said about having meetings in public when it's safe to do so. Happy to volunteer to help with that when it's possible. The main reason I wanted to speak today is about the law enforcement treatment initiative that was recently announced. We'll just go quickly through my notes since I only have 3 minutes. I'm very connected to this issue. I can't even count the number of people just in my homeroom from high school who have passed away, unfortunately, from the opioid crisis. I also was in a relationship for 3 years with someone who struggled with this issue. And before the pandemic started, a friend of mine who had undertreated schizophrenia, unfortunately, succumbed to his illness as a result of a lack of public health support. And so the reason that I'm talking to you today is because I really appreciate the amount of effort that this council, the administration, and law enforcement officers have put into this issue, but I remain really deeply concerned that we aren't doing enough to make this a universally public health issue instead of a criminal justice issue. I caution all of us to ask questions, to reflect upon the intent versus the accurate impact, to center those who are actually most impacted, and to rely purely on silence rather than previous criminal justice practice as we move forward. And so to that end, just very quickly, I have 4 brief questions I wanted to ask on the record, and then hopefully some or all of them can be answered. So number 1, it's yes or no question. Would you please release all documents and communications around what this program is and how it's going to be implemented on the website so everyone can read it and learn more?
I think the answer to that is yes, although it's important to understand that the program originates from the Attorney General's office. So those documents would come from the Attorney General's office. It's a matter of local municipalities participating in the Attorney General's program. So those documents wouldn't be created at the Upper Darby level, but I don't think we would have any problem with sharing them.
Okay, and then if there's any difference between how you implement it versus the Attorney General's vision of the program, you would obviously release those records.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Second question, and you might not be able to answer that until these documents are available, but what are the funding streams for this program and what strings are attached? And I'm just going to quickly read the other 2, and that way you'll have time to answer after my time is up. So number 3, what efforts are all of you, the council, the police department, et cetera, making to prioritize? Can I finish my questions very quickly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know if that was the timer.
First.
So what efforts are you making to deprioritize nonviolent drug arrests, if that's a goal that we all share, that it's a public health interest? And then the 4th question is, what assurances can you make to the public that this is not another accidental or intentional opportunity for hyper surveillance of our communities when they're struggling by the police department?
Yeah, sure. So I believe all the funding is actually provided at the state level by grants, and so there are no strings attached that I'm aware of, and there's no cost to the Upper Darby community at this time. In terms of deprioritizing nonviolent drug arrests, the council and the mayor have already decriminalized small amounts of marijuana, so I think that's a relatively clear signal of where the enforcement priorities are headed. And I'm sorry, what was the other question?
Before we move on to the other question, just wanted to say that it's great that we're not criminalizing marijuana, but if this is something that's going to address the opioid crisis, and maybe that's where things are going, I just really, really hope that we can prioritize violent crime versus nonviolent crime.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, that's why I said I think it's a signal of where the enforcement priorities are generally, or where they're headed.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then sorry, so the 4th question, my other big concern is just that if we're going to treat this as a public health issue, my hope is that this is not going to be an opportunity where we're creating records of a law enforcement nature for future arrests.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
If somebody is asking for this help, that is not going to come back to create a burden for them legally later.
Sure, no, understood. And look, I think broadly, we share your concerns, and I think the LEDI program is a bridge from where we are now to try to get to a funding environment and a staffing environment where these issues are dealt with in a mental health context. I mean, I think the program's goal is to recognize that our law enforcement officers aren't particularly equipped or trained to deal with this. So the idea is give them enough training to make an initial identification and or respond to an initial request for help, and move the person as quickly out of the law enforcement context and into the mental health context as quickly as possible. Where we are right now is a very tough spot because, we don't have the funding or the resources in mental health that we should, and law enforcement is on the hook to provide these services. So LEDI is meant to be sort of a bridge to help us get from where we are to where, many, if not most of us, are hoping that we get to go, if that makes sense.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I definitely have more questions, but thank you for answering these questions.
Right, you're technically out of time. Also, Ms. Kennedy, can you state your address because this is the first in-person speaker time since March or February 2020, we forgot, or March 2020, we forgot to ask for your name, your full name and address before you spoke. So that was my bad.
Sorry about that. My name is Colleen Marie Kennedy, and I live at the Oakwood Apartments on Westchester Pike, 8723 Westchester Pike.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Ms. Phillips?
Yeah, Council President Wentz, thank you. I would just like to make a comment about, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember hearing that the County Human Services Department, they received the grants for this program, if I'm not correct, and so they can have capacity for additional providers under
The Keystone Center?
Yeah, to the Keystone Center.
Yes.
And the police under levy is they will be encouraged when they come into contact with someone that have that wants to get into a program, that they will refer them to these treatment centers. That's my understanding.
Yes, yes, and that was reiterated by District Attorney Stolzheimer. That clarification.
So I don't know if that helped you, Ms. Kennedy. Thank you.
Okay, great. And then Ms. Dobbins, did we get the addresses of the previous speakers? Because I
Yes,
forgot to
we
ask
have
for that.
names and addresses of all speakers. That's what they needed to provide in order to be approved as an attendee. And that
Okay,
includes the number of live speakers that we have for this evening.
Okay, great. And then do we have written comments? Ms. Alexis?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, and go.
First comment is from Gerald Harrison, 29 South Kirkland Avenue, Upper Darby. Greetings to Upper Darby Township Council. I want to thank you again for including $5,000 in the 2021 Upper Darby Township budget for trash cans to be placed along the Westchester Pike corridor, starting at Market Street and 69th Street and going westward along the length of Westchester Pike toward Township Line Road. As many council members may recall, I had attended council meetings regularly with this request for funding of trash cans. Has the plan been developed to begin the purchase and positioning of these cans? In my view, this is not just another stretch of roadway through Upper Darby. I consider it to be singularly crucial. By its very nature and location, this stretch serves, in effect, as a poster board advertisement for Upper Darby to the thousands of motorists and pedestrians who pass through it every day. Again, for emphasis, my main question is, what is the status of the acquisition, placement, and maintenance of trash cans? End of comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So the capital budget was a little bit delayed, but just, or the bond issuance, I should say, was a little bit delayed, but recently approved. And we hope to receive the funds by the end of this month, at which point acquisition, placement, et cetera, for the trash cans and all other capital initiatives can begin. So we're a little bit behind where we had hoped to be, but yeah, we should have the bond money by the end of the month and be able to get started on all capital initiatives.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that update on the capital bonds funds, CAO. Councilman Burke?
Thanks for bringing that up, Gerald. That was for all business districts, right? The $5,000, or was that strictly for Westchester Pike?
It's for trash cans generally.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Gwynn, did you have a question? You started to. Are you okay? Okay, great. Okay, great. And sorry, I gotta get to my timer. And next.
Go.
Yep.
James Durante, 5335 Brittany Drive, Clifton Heights. Last month, there was a motion and vote to extend the public comment past the 30-minute time limit. That vote was a tie due to Councilman Bonnet abstaining from the vote. His reason was that he has an interest with the contractor on another issue that was not even up for a vote to the council. That makes me want to question his ability to lead when the vote to extend past 30 minutes had nothing to do with anything other than public comment. The mayor cast the deciding vote no, along with councils Blackwell, Sadiq, Tunis, Gwynn, and Billups. By voting no, you in essence have told the people of Upper Darby to keep quiet. We don't want to hear your concerns. Shame on you. This is a public hearing and everyone has the right to be heard, no matter what the subject is. 10 more minutes of public comment should never be overlooked. It just sends a bad message. Thank God Dr. King was not told he ran out of time in front of the Lincoln Memorial when he gave his I Have a Dream speech. Thank you for hearing me. End of comment.
Madam President, may I have something to say?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Bonnet.
Since my name was brought up.
Yes.
I actually had an obligation to abstain from that. I have no relationship to the contractor, as this speaker just mentioned, none whatsoever, nor do I have any relationship to the project that is being proposed. I do, however, have a business relationship with the present owner of the property. Therefore, I felt compelled to abstain to avoid a potential conflict of interest. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Councilman Tunis.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the resident for her comments. I just want to remind residents that all written public comments submitted to council members, we see them, and with this format now more than ever, we're able to hear more voices than we've ever been able to hear before. So trust and believe your voices are always being heard. And if you feel as though it hasn't, you can contact council members directly and or our president or go through the mayor request line.
Thank you for clarifying that for everyone. Okay, and do we have more?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. And go.
Don Doyle, 136 Hilldale Road, Lansdowne, PA. Mayor Barbara Ann Keffer and members of council, I am writing to express my concern and opposition to the request by the Dwight City Group of New York City for variances to the residential conservation zoning for the property located at 800 East Providence Road, commonly known as the Thompson Tract. The residential conservation designation was put in place by the township to preserve the unique character of the Roselawn area. It was enacted in 1985 after several years of discussion and many meetings and hearings. The planning for this decision took years. I know because I was part of the process as a member of the Roselawn Civic Association, an institution that traces its history to the 1930s. It was agreed at the time to preserve the open spaces for all to enjoy and not to let the area fall victim to being overdeveloped. I am dismayed by the council's decision to not formally oppose this attempt to destroy the character of our neighborhood, to not instruct the township solicitor to represent our attempt to preserve the zoning code that council passed and put into effect is an insult to your constituents. Who knows what is best for a neighborhood, the residents or an out-of-state group of investors who are looking to get a return on their money? If you honestly consider the question, I think you know the answer. As a homeowner in Upper Darby Township for the past 42 years, I have made a huge emotional and financial investment in my neighborhood. I am not alone in this. The residents of Penn Manor and Penn Pines are also committed to maintaining the style of living that is developed by knowing and working with their neighbors. The strong bonds that have formed over the years harden our resolve to protect our way of life. We chose to live in Upper Darby. We do not consider our neighborhood to be a tired asset, as the Dwight Group describes it in their proposal. What an incredible insult. We don't feel the need to be a revitalizing neighborhood, as the Dwight Group refers to us. As our elected representatives, it is my hope you are as shocked and revolted by their inaccurate descriptions of our hometown as we are. In closing, I have heard council repeatedly say that we should refer our opposition to this project to the zoning board, that they are the ultimate decision makers. It is true. They will make the final decision. In my mind, they will need to make an informed decision, and council can, by supporting our opposition, make them aware of the importance of respecting the zoning code and the wishes of the majority of the people who will be most affected by their informed decision. I would ask that you reconsider your reticence to commit to our opposition and endorse our efforts. I would like to mention that a Facebook group has been formed to inform the public of the Dwight Group's intentions for the property. There have been a very good and positive response to the facts and videos that have been posted. The latest video posted on Saturday, April 17th has had over 5,500 views.
How much more is left?
One sentence.
Go, continue. Continue.
In addition, the petition has been created on change.org that has garnered about 1,500 signatures. The public is watching council and is confused as to why it will not support the zoning, and it passed in 1985. Please listen to your constituents and act accordingly. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. End of comment.
Okay, so I just want to, council members have mentioned their opinions on the Thompson track on multiple council meetings during public comment. And the fact that we are not having our solicitors go does not mean that we don't oppose it or that we don't agree with our residents and constituents. It just means that we trust our zoning board, and which is why we keep asking all the residents to share their concerns with the zoning board, because they're the ones that need to have that information. And I do plan on attending that meeting, as I expect majority of council members will be attending the zoning board meeting. And if they feel empowered to speak about the issue based on, we want to hear their plan. I don't know their official plan. I want to hear what the plan is. I know what their residents have said, because they've come to our we've gotten, I'd say 50 to 100 comments on the Thompson tract over the last 3 or 4 months. So I understand where our residents are. I want to hear the presentation so that I can make an informed decision on the process and what everything is about. So I have not, so that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for tomorrow night so that we can all take part in that special zoning board meeting and hash it out there. That's where it's supposed to take place. It's not before us. We don't have a vote on it. The zoning board does, which is why we keep empowering you to send your comments and sign up to speak at the zoning board meeting, because it's in their ball. The ball is in their court. Council members will be there. Council members will speak if they feel they need to. But if the residents have it down and you guys are rocking it out, I expect our zoning board to make the most educated, respectful decision, the best possible decision for our township, because they are residents too, and they care about our township. So I believe in our zoning board. I trust our zoning board. And I think if the residents come out like they have during council meetings, then our zoning board will make the best decision for our community. So I just wanted to share that. Ms. Alexis, is there anyone else?
Yes, we have 3 more comments.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Donald Procopio, 514 Montana Avenue. I am writing to comment on the council's, the mayor's, and the chief administrative officer's actions in the past several council meetings. Over the past several months, I have commented, along with many of my neighbors, on the proposed use variance request by the Dwight City Group for the planned development on 800 East Providence Road, otherwise known as the Thompson tract. Along with all my neighbors, I strongly oppose this variance request, and many of us will take part in the zoning hearing board meeting now scheduled for tomorrow night to voice that opposition yet again. What I would like to comment on tonight, though, is what I have witnessed over the Zoom meetings these past several months as the issue and others have been debated. I have seen my mayor make light of the fact that her first chance at a tie-breaking vote took place last meeting, and in fact, she cast that vote to cut off the reading of public comment. I have witnessed the chief administrative officer complain of serial right-to-know requesters when in fact it is his job to comply with those requests. And I have seen the majority of the council members vote not to get involved in the above-mentioned variance request, despite the repeated requests from the very public this development would impact, and despite the fact that the bordering communities of Lansdowne and Alden have asked to join the hearing in opposition. I can only conclude that this council, this mayor, and this chief administrative officer are not acting in the best interests of the public they are representing. I am very disappointed in my elected and appointed officials. Thank you, Donald Procopio. End of comment.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Hope to see you at the zoning board meeting tomorrow. And next.
Michael Jordan, 90 Pilgrim Lane, Drexel Hill. There are two items I would like to comment on, both with the underlying theme of a lack of transparency, a lack of professionalism, and frankly, a lack of respect for the citizens for whom the administration is supposedly working. Number one, there is a new business operating under the name of American Safety Options at the corner of Township Pine Road and Sylvia Road in Drexel Hill. It isn't exactly clear from the company's website what they do, other than it has something to do with home health care placement, training, and possibly some aspect of group homes. Having been actively involved as past president of the Pilgrim Gardens Aronimink Civic Association in a zoning hearing in 2006, 2007 regarding that property and representing the wishes of our neighborhood at the time. I knew that it was a non-conforming use for the property. The zoning variance granted stated that it could only be used as an attorney's office. Additionally, there was a sign in the yard that appeared to be far too large for what had been approved in the variance. On April 7th, 2021, I sent an inquiry through the township website to the mayor, the CAO, and LNI, asking to be contacted about this situation. A week went by without any contact from anyone. I called on April 14th asking to speak to the mayor. I was referred to LNI. I still asked for the mayor to call me. After bouncing around LNI between a few people, I did finally, on April 15th, get someone in LNI to respond. I had to tell LNI what was going on. I had to tell LNI about the 2006-2007 variance and the current non-conforming use. Ultimately, LNI has notified the business that they are non-conforming and what steps are required for the business going forward. As of this afternoon, I still have not received a phone call from the mayor or CAO. The fact that I have not received a phone call or an email or any correspondence is shameful and shows a complete lack of respect, lack of transparency, and a lack of professionalism. A quick call or email or even a text saying, "Thanks for bringing this to our attention, we're on it," would have made me feel much better about the situation. But no, nada, zilch from anyone in the administration. I had a very similar experience when I emailed the mayor and CAO last year looking for information about the Drexel Line project before the public hearing. Again, no response from either. And when I did get to speak during the public Zoom meeting of that hearing, my comments were largely dismissed as, "That doesn't really matter," by council president. That was the same meeting where the council president told council, "You guys rock," after approving the Drexel Line proposal. Talk about a lack of professionalism. Number two, these meetings need to be more open to the public. I know and understand that COVID is still a real threat and that offering a virtual option makes a lot of sense.
How much is left on there?
Maybe about six sentences, maybe.
Long sentences, short, like a couple paragraphs, or
like a little paragraph.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I know and understand that COVID is still a real threat and that offering a virtual option makes a lot of sense. But other organizations have shown that with masking and social distancing, the public can be and should be invited to actively participate in our government. We have 3 school facilities in the township that could easily handle public meetings and still be COVID compliant. In fact, council meetings and focus groups have been held at these locations many times in the past. By hiding behind the veil of Zoom, you are prohibiting our participation in our own government. Again, a blatant lack of transparency, a lack of professionalism, and a lack of respect for the citizens for whom you are working. This is especially disheartening given the fact that the administration's platform was all about transparency and citizen involvement. Thank you, Michael Jordan. End of comment.
Okay.
One more comment.
Okay. Just as just one note, as far as our meetings, more people are involved in our meetings because they are virtual and on Zoom than ever before. There have been council meetings where maybe 3 people showed up when it was only in person, or 4 people showed up, or at the most, depending on if there was a really major issue going on, we packed the room, but they didn't stay for the whole meeting. So I have to say that more people reach our meetings because of the virtual aspect. Ideally, we'd love to be back in person, but we have to do it safely. And we need a space because our council chambers is not large enough for council and public to have a 6-foot distance from each other. Our chamber, the audience part of the public part of our chambers is too small. So we have to, I've been communicating with the school district. I will be communicating more with them in order to move it to a school or we have to, 1, make sure that we fit within their schedule, 2, make sure it doesn't cost us a whole lot of money to do it. Because, it wasn't in the budget when we originally scheduled the budget for this year. So I have to check on a whole variety of things. And, we also still have in-person limits that we have to be careful of. So council plus our support staff is 20 to 25 people to begin with. So it's a matter of making sure we're crossing all of our T's and dotting all of our I's and following all the rules and are in compliance with the governor's, rules and so forth. So just wanted to clarify that we are more transparent as far as more people have access to our meetings because they're virtual and that they can watch them at any time because it's on YouTube. So I just wanted to, and CAO, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Just to be very clear, I mean, I only very recently became aware of this property and this issue. And I was pleased that when I immediately looked into it, the Department of Licenses and Inspections had already issued a violation letter to the owner. So, I mean, I became aware of it, acted immediately, and found out that L&I had already issued a violation notice. So that's what happened.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Miss Alexis, you had another?
One more.
Okay, and go.
Lonnie Johnson, 326 Huntley Road. Good evening to all council members, Madam Mayor, and all other county officials. I'm writing in today with more of a question instead of a comment. My question is concerning the sewer lateral inspection requirement prior to the resale of a home. I've tried to contact L&I several times, but I can't seem to get anyone on the phone. In any event, my question is concerning the availability of a possible waiver for this requirement when selling to a real estate investor versus a traditional home buyer. I would like to get some clarity on this matter. So if anyone at the council meeting tonight could answer, could answer this question definitively, I will be listening in and would greatly appreciate a response. All the best, Lonnie Johnson. And that is the final comment of the evening.
Okay. I don't know if we have the answer to that question on hand, but we will definitely look into it. Oh, Mayor.
I'll address it really quickly. The sewer lateral inspections are intended to be conducted at every point of sale, no matter who the buyer is, who the seller is, and it's a fairness and equity issue. We've also built it into our CDBG program, the rehab program. Anyone that qualifies for the rehab program is going to get a sewer lateral inspection. So off the top of my head, I would say it doesn't matter who the buyer is or who the seller is. Part of the getting a resale certification is having that inspection done for everybody.
And also just to clarify, because there have been some confusions for residents, in our ordinance, you need a video taken of your sewer lateral. And you don't need to rip up anything to get that video. You just need to go through the entrance point. And for some people, it's in their basement, and for some people, it's at near their sidewalk or in their sidewalk to drop down between, and the plumbing company should have a camera operator person who can come and run it. It's a snake. It's a camera on a snake that, fishes out the line and provides the video. So if anyone who's trying to sell their house is being told that they have to rip up their yard to get the video, that is not true. You should not have to do any kind of damage to your yard or sidewalk just to get the video. I've heard that from a variety of people. So I just wanted to clarify that since this question came up. So, thank you. Okay, great. Okay, so next up, we have the approval of our minutes. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes for the committee meeting of March 3rd, 2021?
I'd like to make a motion.
So Gwynn and Phillips. Any questions or concerns on the minutes of March 3rd? Seeing none, please turn your microphones on. All those in favor of approving the minutes of March 3rd, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say your name. Okay, so ayes have it. Ms. Faralia is not here. Okay, and then next up can we get a motion to approve the minutes of the council meeting for March 17th, 2021?
I would like to make a motion.
Sadiq and Gwen. Are there any questions or concerns on the minutes? Okay, seeing none, everyone turn on your microphones. All those in favor of approving the council meeting minutes from March 17th, 2021, please signify by saying aye.
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 Your name, and Ms. Faralia is not here. Excused. Boom. Great, thank you. So next up, we have the Honorable Mayor Barbara Ann Keffer. Take it away. And you gotta turn your mic on.
I tried to beat you to it there. Didn't quite make it. So good evening, everybody. Yesterday's conviction of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin in the murder of George Floyd is a tremendous relief for many people. And my administration acknowledges there is still much work to do to address the issues of systemic racism and bias that plague our society. Justice is a process and not a single moment or outcome, and we must continue the hard work of correcting these inequities for years to come. However, let there be no doubt that this verdict is a watershed moment and a clear affirmation that George Floyd's life mattered. We also recognize and appreciate the very hard work and dedication of our public safety personnel here in Upper Darby leading up to the verdict announcement. Public Works, Fire Department, and the Police Department all work together around this event. Enduring change and real equality are our goals, and it is more important now, more than ever, that we come together as residents of Upper Darby to look out for and to protect each other. Communication is the foundation that creates an engaged community, and I think it's fair to say that these have been some really tough times for all of us. On top of the complications and adjustments of our COVID life, we are all still grappling with the struggles of daily life as well as the larger social problems that things such as the pandemic and the Chauvin verdict shine a light upon. Times like these, or in any times at all, there is no harm in being vulnerable and expressing how you're feeling, especially in these trying times that we are living through today. If you feel like you need a different outlet or perspective, please contact the Delaware County Telehealth Helpline at 855-464-9342. The helpline is dedicated to providing emotional support to anyone in Delaware County 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the number again is 855-464-9342. The line is staffed by certified peer specialists and mental health professionals. All calls are confidential and can be made anonymously. So switching gears a little bit. On a positive note, directly related to Upper Darby, our community, I am very happy to announce that we have received a $425,000 commitment from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to do work to enhance the area around Market and Powell, to create greater walkability and to create an improved streetscape. I want to thank Senator Carney for all of his support for this application and for our community. The Upper Darby Environmental Advisory Committee and the Friends of Upper Darby Trails will hold a Learn and Hike event this Saturday, April 24th, in honor of Earth Day. There will be 3 separate hikes throughout the day, one along the Recreation Trail beginning at 9 a.m., one at the Underground Railroad Trail spur beginning at 1 p.m., and that's at the cemetery, and there's one at Nailers Run Park Trail beginning at 6 p.m. More details can be found on the Environmental Advisory Committee's Facebook page. There's also a cleanup in the near the Primus School on the 24th. That starts around 10 a.m. And there's a lot of people doing cleanups and getting involved directly with the community and devoting and volunteering their time to improve our community, and I really support that. I think it's great. On Friday, April 30th, we are partnering with the Upper Darby Shade Tree Commission, the Upper Darby Township Library staff, the Tree Tenders of Upper Darby, and the 4th District Community Group for this year's Arbor Day celebration. We will be planting several new trees in the recently cleared space on the grounds around Sellers Library and Sellers Park on State Road. The ceremony starts at 10:30 a.m. Also, and it's very important to know that the Tree Tenders of Upper Darby and the Upper Darby 4th District Community Group will be on hand, and they will be distributing free yard and house plants, and they also have free plant kits for children. So this looks to be a really great event. And as a reminder, our new weekly yard waste collection is already started, and it's going until November 19th. Yard waste will be collected weekly on residents' regularly scheduled recycling pickup day. Yard waste is defined as leaves, garden residues, shrubbery, tree trimmings, and similar material. Please do not use plastic bags to collect your yard waste. Instead, place it in biodegradable paper bags, which are available at our local hardware stores, or place the yard waste loosely in trash cans without bags and put them out with your regular recycling. And we've had a lot of comments in the council meetings concerning the Township Tract, and I just want to say a couple things. I'm going to be on the meeting tomorrow, but for whoever's listening now, and just as general information. First of all, the Thompson Tract is not what is considered traditional like open space. It is privately owned land that is currently zoned for development. It's RC, right? It's residential conservation, and has been since 1985 or 1986. except for a single home on the property now, it is private, undeveloped land. And I really hear the current concerns of the neighbors and the residents in the area. I had the same concerns almost 12 years ago when the township and the administration attempted to rezone the Thompson tract and also the Mazzina tract, which is that wooded area across State Road from Drexel line. The attempt 12 years ago was to change the zoning to allow for high density housing, similar to what the applicant is doing now. To me, it's really important to remember that the Thompson tract is private land. And also, just in a general sense, anybody is allowed to submit an application to the zoning hearing board. And just to be even more clear, the only reason that a zoning application is necessary in this case, or any case, is because my administration denied the initial plan application. So I do appreciate all the comments about the Thompson tract. And actually, it's very encouraging to see people get involved and to be aware. It's good. It's good to hear people's concerns. And, there's going to be the zoning hearing board meeting tomorrow night is only about the Township tract. So I hope to see many people on it. And in general, the zoning hearing board it's quasi judicial, it's independent, and it is the job of the zoning hearing board to hear each and every application and make decisions on the application based on the application's merits. And as mayor, I don't tell the zoning hearing board how to vote. The zoning hearing board is there to provide checks and balances so that all applicants are assured a fair and balanced process. I mean, if the mayor or if council told the zoning hearing board how to vote, then there's actually no real reason to have a zoning hearing board, right? That's how I look at it. This kind of participation is what local government is about. And that's why the zoning hearing board and all of our other boards and commissions, like the Civil Service Commission and the Historic Commission, are really critically important to guide us to our future. So switching gears again. I am happy to report that the number of COVID-19 vaccines available in Delaware County has been steadily increasing. If you have not yet received the vaccine and want an appointment, please call 484-276-2100 or visit delcopa.gov/vax to register for an appointment. Unfortunately, there's also been an increase in the number of positive cases in our area over the past few weeks. It's vitally important that everyone gets vaccinated as soon as possible. Please continue to wear masks in public and practice social distancing. For my part, myself and my younger daughter will be getting our first vaccines on Monday, and my husband and older daughter will be getting their second doses within the next 2 weeks. If you want to schedule an appointment and are having difficulty, please contact my office at mayor@upperdarby.org or call 610-734-7625. And if you're helping somebody to get an appointment, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help. So thank you. Have a great evening. And let's continue on with the rest of the council meeting.
Great. Before we do that, we have one more thing in your realm. We have the appointments So if Solicitor Richardson can give us a reading of Resolution 22-21.
Thank you and good evening, President Wentz. This is Resolution 22-21, a resolution of Upper Darby Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, confirming and appointing members to the Shade Tree Commission of Upper Darby Township, repealing all inconsistent resolutions or parts thereof, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Whereas the Shade Tree Commission of Upper Darby Township was established by Ordinance 2498 in 1976, whereas the ordinance provides that the mayor appoints 3 citizens of the township to the Shade Tree Commission to serve staggered terms, and whereas council desires to ensure that all members of the Shade Tree Commission are officially appointed and that their terms are specified in order to provide clarity and proper record-keeping protocol. Now, therefore, be it and it is hereby resolved by the Upper Darby Township Council and is hereby adopted and resolved by the authority of the same as follows. Dolores Lombardi, Chair, terms expires September 16th, 2023. Michael Atwell, term expires April 21st, 2025. Evan Hunt, term expires April 21st, 2026. There's a repealer, a severability, and effective immediately. So ends the reading.
Great, thank you. Can we get a motion to approve?
I can make a motion to approve.
Resolution
I'll
22.
second that motion.
Gwynn and Silva. I must apologize. I'm just curious if we can change one word on it, and please let me know if it's possible to change the word from citizens to residents. Is there a reason? Does someone have to be a citizen of the United States of America to be a member of this commission?
It's the language is directly from the ordinance, which when it was passed.
So we have to change the ordinance to correct that word.
Okay, let me just take a look at it again. Were you speaking of directly?
This second, whereas the ordinance provides that the mayor appoints 3 citizens
of the township, That's direct language from the ordinance. So what that means is that they would have to be residents of the township. So.
Right, but not all residents of the township are citizens of the United States.
I think residents here and citizens are synonymous, not necessarily referring to citizens of the United States, but citizens of the township.
So this is, may I just step in? Council President Wentz, this is a whereas clause, which is essentially dicta or nothing that's binding. We're merely appointing members to a board or commission. We can go ahead and look at the enabling ordinance to see the language and adjust it as such. If there is some kind of conflict as to residents or citizens, we can bring it back to council to look at this. But this resolution really has nothing to do with that. It's appointing some folks to a board or commission.
Right, no, I understand. I just wanted, we didn't have it for the committee meeting, and I apologize for not catching it earlier and asking you about it earlier. So, okay. That's why I was just looking for clarity. So, okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other questions or concerns on this resolution? Okay, seeing none. Mayor Keffer, did you want to speak on it? Your appointments?
Just real quickly, I just want to say, I'd like to thank Evan and Michael for stepping up. It's a really important commission that we hope to re-energize, right? Shade Tree Commission is in charge by the current ordinances. It's kind of limited to trees and public spaces, but we have a lot of room to grow there, so to speak. So, and no, I spoke with both of them before I submitted their resumes to Alexis to give counsel. So I look forward to, a re-energized commission that will also, kind of propel us towards the future. So I'm real happy. So I hope that council supports these appointments, and yeah, I just
Great.
look forward to seeing what you guys are going to vote on here.
Great, thank you. And I just want to thank Ms. Dolores Lombardi for chairing the commission and keeping it moving during a time when she was actually the only person on the commission. And she kept it alive and kept making sure things were happening. So I greatly appreciate all the work she's done. So, all right, great. Seeing no other questions or concerns, all those in favor of passing resolution 22-21, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say your name. Councilwoman Faralia is excused. Thank you. Ayes have it. Okay. So next up, we have Treasurer's Report. Treasurer David Heyman.
Hello. All right. Hello, Council President Wentz, Mayor Keffer, and Council. I submitted my report to Council President Wentz earlier today, and so I'll read my summary. So
forward it to everybody.
What's that?
I forward it to everyone.
Okay. Thank you. So my report this month summarizes the township's financial condition as of March 31st, 2021. It reviews revenues and expenses for the month, ending cash balances with a performance comparison to March 31st, 2020. On March 31st, 2021, our operating cash balance was $36,581,538, which includes the $5 million from that bridge loan that we took early in the year. Our cash position increased $30,996,092 over February 28th, and $29,243,391 year to date. The March revenues totaled $40,878,812 against expenses of $7,872,718, resulting in a $33 million plus surplus for the month. The most significant factor for this cash influx was the collection of $36.7 million of property taxes that came in. This is what we would expect in the first quarter of our fiscal year. We had budgeted a total collection this year of $55,855,000 of total property taxes. So we've collected 72% of our tax revenue for 2021, and we've got 28% left to collect. Comparing the year-to-date results with last year, 2021 revenues exceed 2020 revenues by $8,850,115, while year-to-date expenses are $1,279,704 below 2020 expenses for the same time period. In summary, we've collected 57% of our expected revenue and expended 20% of our operating budget. We're 25% of the way through the year, having ended the first quarter. We're tracking better than budgeted compared to a year ago. So the state of our finances right now is good. One more note that we did get our A+ rating from Standard & Poor's ahead of our expected bond issue. So we know that. All right. So that is the general financial condition. I have a real quick little PowerPoint blurb if anyone would like to see it. So I'll take that as a yes.
Yes, would love to see it.
All right, hang on here. All right, so this is quick. And from the beginning, please go, there it is. So the idea for this one came up in my conversation, my conversation with my monthly meeting with Gary Marin, our finance director, and who has been doing just an unbelievable job of getting the books in order, just working tirelessly at this. And some major structural changes, some process changes are inside the way that we are reporting our cash management. And I wanted to kind of bring that to light because it's very important. It brings us from the 20th century into the 21st century in terms of process. And, I can say that, part of our capital budget upcoming is to get our technology updated. So that's being thought through and worked on. That's very exciting because it's making my job a lot easier. And so what I'm about to show you is some changes Gary's already made in the process that it's helping us understand our financial position better. So as everybody knows, we've got the four funds which comprise the operating budget. If you're sick of hearing of it, good. That means you finally get it, right? So we've got the general fund, the sewer fund, the highway fund, and the sinking fund. That's the way our finances are structured, our operating budget. All right. So here was the problem that we had, and we were on what's called a cash basis accounting system. That means we recognized revenue when money came in, and we recognized revenue when money went out. And that's kind of an old way of doing things that most governments don't do. And so the idea is money comes in, it goes into the revenue ledger, bang, there's our revenue. The red lines, in like the $300 that I've used as an example here, represent our budget. But what happens is we get money coming in clumps, like we got the 36 million that just came in this past month. And it's really hard to track that against how we plan to spend that money when you're working on a cash basis. So that's the 30,000 foot look down on what the problem was. Through Gary's efforts, we're now on what's called a modified accrual basis, which is pretty much, this is what most governments use and have been using for a long time. And now we are. And so what happens here is it's a combination of that cash basis, so recognizing cash, but it's also part of what industry uses, which is called an accrual basis. So it's kind of a combination without getting into the ugly details of it. But what happens is when the money comes in, we can track it against what we expect to spend it on, and it makes the reporting clearer. It makes my job easier because I spent all last year, just hours and hours and hours every month just trying to manipulate the data and figure out, are we going to have enough money at the end of the year? And it was very inaccurate early on, and it got more accurate toward the end of the year when there was less room to possibly make a mistake. And now it's going to be much more accurate throughout the course of the year. And I point this out for a couple of reasons. Number one, to let all of you know that we are in the 21st century with our processes. So we're reporting our finances as well as the method allows, and that this is due to a heck of a lot of effort by the finance department. Just really a lot of effort, and so that's what I wanted to bring to you. It came up in my discussion with Gary. I got kind of inspired by it, and I wanted to share it with you. And that concludes my little presentation. I could go on.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. That actually, because that also visualizes what the auditor had talked about at our last meeting, and helps to put a visual image to it as well. So, and I'm a visual person, so I greatly appreciate it. And I'm not there anymore. Oh, there you are. Sorry. My computer was weird.
Okay. I unshared.
Okay, no, it hopped me out of the video realm. It's like, oh, okay. All right, so wonderful. Thank you so much. Can we get a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So move.
Second.
So Phillips and Sadiq. Okay, are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say your name. Councilwoman Faraglia is excused. Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Treasurer Heyman. All right, so next up, it's me. Okay, great. So I'd like to thank everyone who have been coming out to take part in cleanups throughout the township, whether it's specifically on the weekends or constantly coming out on a regular basis to help to clean up our community. And I just wanted to thank Mayor Keffer for including the 4th District Community Group and tree tenders. It's our honor to be able to take part in Arbor Day and provide plants for the residents of Upper Darby and anyone who attends. So we look forward to Arbor Day. And I just want to say that I know we are thankful for the guilty verdict of the ex-officer Chauvin. It's a step in the right direction for healing our country. We need to have the hard conversation to end racism and police brutality in our country. I know that our Upper Darby police officers get the training that the prosecutor spoke of in the trial. They also do mental health checks throughout the day, throughout their work days. I hope that as a community, we will be able to work together and provide equality and respect for all residents of Upper Darby Township. So thank you. So we get to move on to committee reports. We have a lot going on, and I know that we've already been here for a while. So heading right into Municipal Services, Licensing and Public Works Committee, co-chairs Councilman Siddiq and Tunis Jr., members Councilman Wagner and Burke. Solicitor Richardson, can you give us a brief on Resolution 16-21?
Thank you, President Wentz. This is Resolution 16-21 is a resolution approving agreement between Upper Darby Township and the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for the township to provide data and operations plan for the critical corridors pursuant to Pennsylvania state law. The township has the authority to enact traffic laws under Pennsylvania law, and the township is required to provide information to PennDOT prior to erecting traffic signals. They both PennDOT and the township share a common interest in facilitating the safe and efficient management of traffic flow. Therefore, be it resolved by the authority of the Township Council of Upper Darby Township, Delaware County is hereby resolved by the authority of the same that the Chief Administrative Officer of the township or his designee shall be authorized to submit to the Commonwealth, submit the Commonwealth Municipal Traffic Signal Maintenance Agreement, either in writing or via electronic signature, to PennDOT and to sign this agreement on behalf of the township. So that's the reading.
Sorry, I was having problems unmuting myself. Okay. Thank you very much for that reading. Can we get a motion to approve Resolution 16-21?
So moved.
Second. And Siddiq. Are there any questions or concerns on this resolution? I'm seeing none. Please turn your microphones on. All those in favor of approving Resolution 16-21, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say your name. Councilwoman Faralia is excused. Thank you very much. Great. So next up, we have Law and Government and Rules and Procedures Committee, co-chairs Phillips and Silva, members Siddiq and Blackwell. Solicitor Kilkenny, can you give us a brief on Resolution 17-21? Sorry, my brain froze.
No problem, Council President Wentz. At our last committee meeting, I went ahead and read all the whereas clauses and the statutory history and how we got here related to evictions, the pandemic, both from the federal and the state level. So I'm kind of read the section talking about the action now that Upper Darby Council is requesting, starting with the therefore clause. So now, therefore, be it resolved by Upper Darby Township Council. 1, Township Council formally urges the Pennsylvania Legislature, Governor Wolf, and to extent legal and appropriate, the Pennsylvania courts to take action to protect renters and homeowners for at least a duration of the COVID-19 pandemic, and pass Senate Bill 290, which was referenced previously in the whereas clauses. 2, the Township Council formally urges the United States Congress and President Biden to also take action to protect renters and homeowners for at least a duration of the COVID-19 pandemic,
and authorize or direct the CDC director to extend the existing CDC moratorium for the duration of the COVID-19 pandemic. And 3, the copies of this resolution shall be sent to all elected federal, state, and local officials representing any portion of the township, resolved and adopted this day in council chamber.
Great, thank you. Can we get a motion to approve resolution 17-21?
I'd like to make a motion.
Councilman Tunis, did you want to, you were moving to? So I got a Sadiq for a move. Councilman Tunis, did you want to second it? I can't hear you.
Second it. I was first, but I can second it.
Okay, well, nope. Yep, Tunis first. You brought it to us, so it makes the most sense. Sadiq, as a second. Councilman Tunis, did you want to say anything on this? We appreciate you bringing this to us. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay. No, I just want to urge my colleagues to support this resolution, as this is something that has affected people in the entire township across all districts. And you may look at a resolution as something that may not have as much power, but this is going to reach somebody, and something like this can affect some form of change moving forward. So I'm urging my colleagues to support this.
Thank you. Councilman Gwynn?
Yes, I had a few comments I'd like to make, or observations. In the nitpicky side of things, one of the whereases, the third one down at the end of the sentence there, it has evictions as opposed to evictions. And the date in the fourth whereas down is March 3021, March 30th, 3021. Typo type of things. And in the last whereas, I think there should be the removal of the word would, that it goes just before foreclosures.
Thank you. We'll make those changes and forward them before the final version is signed. Again, these are in the whereas portions, which is not binding on anything.
I understand, but particularly since it's going to other people, I'd like to make sure.
No, thank you very much for pointing it out, Councilor.
Any other questions or concerns?
That's it.
Great. In the future, can you just send that to our solicitors?
I
and
did.
Then they can make the corrections accordingly.
I did.
Okay. Well, we'll just follow up with that. Okay. All right. So all those in favor of resolution 17-21, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say your name.
No, Tom Wagner.
Tom Bonnet, Tom Wagner, right?
No, and Bonnet, no, and Councilwoman Feralia is excused. Okay, the ayes have it. 8-2. Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Public Safety Committee co-chairs Blackwell and Burke, members Tunis Jr. and Silva. Solicitor Richardson, can you give us a brief of ordinance number 3095 before we have our public hearing?
Sure. Thank you, President. This is ordinance of Upper Darby Township establishing and implementing a program to charge user fees for the deployment of public safety services rendered by the Fire Department of Upper Darby Township for the delivery of fire rescue services, personnel, supplies, and equipment to the scene of motor vehicle accidents and other incidents on highways, repealing all inconsistent ordinances and parts thereof, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. See, there is, just to begin with the therefore, this covers, we have section 1 provides the fees, which is listed, and section 2 has a fee schedule. Section 3 refers to payment. Section 4 is allocation, and section 5 is the addition from committee meeting that specifically says, which I will read, In the event that an insurance carrier refuses to pay or driver does not have insurance, the township will not seek reimbursement from the driver or any other individual involved in the MVA accident or incident. There's a severability clause. Section 7 is repealer, and there's an effective date. So ends the summary.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to open up the public hearing for ordinance 3095. Do we have any callers or written comment for this ordinance?
There is no written comment.
Okay, thank you.
Council President Wentz, it may be worth asking any of the attendees if they'd like to raise their hand if they wish to make a comment.
Okay, great. So for the attendees that are still with us, please raise your hand if you would like to make a comment. Let me go back to screen.
There are no raised hands at this time.
Okay, I somehow got to the wrong side. All right. Okay, great. So seeing no one to comment on to take part in the public hearing for ordinance number 3095, then the public hearing is now closed. Can we get a motion to approve ordinance number 3095?
I'd like to make that motion.
Silva?
Second it.
I'm sorry, who seconded it? Burke?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Great. Are there any questions or concerns on this ordinance? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Phillips, can you give us a roll call vote?
Yes. Councilor Tunis?
Yes.
Councilor Billups is a yes. Councilor Silva?
Yes.
Councilor Blackwell?
Yes.
Councilor Gwynn?
Yes.
Councilor Burke?
Yes.
Councilor Sadiq?
Yes.
Councilor Faraya is excused. Councilor Barnett?
Yes.
Councilor Wagner?
You're muted, Councilman Wagner.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay.
And Council President Wentz.
Yes, great.
Okay.
Great,
So
the ordinance passes.
Okay.
Great, so next up, we have, let me find myself. Here we go. We have Planning, Zoning, and Building Code Committee. Co-chairs Councilman Gwynn and Billups. Members Barnett and Hafiz Tunis Jr. Solicitor Richardson, can you please give us a brief on resolution 23, or give us a reading on 23-21, because we didn't get to hear it before. And that's the sewer one.
Yeah. This is a resolution of Upper Darby Township conditionally accepting ownership of the existing sanitary sewer line located on the properties of the Delaware County Community College Archdiocese of Philadelphia. Where Archdiocese of Philadelphia is the current legal owner of a certain 35.171 acre property located at 403 North Lansdowne Avenue, Upper Darby Township, located at the corner of Garrett Road and Lansdowne Avenue, in the township's R1 zoning district, indexed at parcel number 16090099110, currently consisting of the Monsignor Bonner and Archbishop Prendergast Catholic High School. Whereas pursuant to Upper Darby Township Resolution 39-20, Delaware County Community College received approval from the township to subdivide the Archdiocese of Philadelphia's property into two lots, one with with one lot to consist of the Archbishop Prendergast High School building and several outbuildings, and the second lot to consist of the Monsignor Senior Bonner High School building, athletic fields, and the Friary building. Delaware County Community College was also approved to perform extensive interior renovations to the Pendergrass building and to construct a new annex wing to the Pendergrass building and an early learning center, structured parking deck, and a new at-grade parking spaces and associated stormwater management, erosion and sediment controls, lighting, and landscaping improvement. Whereas upon subdivision of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia's property, this existing sanitary sewer line consisting of the sewer line and associated manholes, collectively sanitary sewer line, will serve two separate adjacent properties under separate ownership. Whereas the township is responsible for the collection and conveyance systems that provide public sewer service to various property in Upper Darby Township, including the properties of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and the Delaware County Community College. Whereas the township desires to foster positive land development project that benefits its residents, like the proposed Delaware County Community College. Whereas as a condition of the subdivision and development of the proposed project, the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection desires that the township take ownership of the sanitary sewer line to avoid joint private ownership of the sanitary sewer line by the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and Delaware County Community College. Whereas the township is willing to accept ownership of the sanitary sewer line from such owners, subject to the terms and conditions of an operation, maintenance, and indemnification agreement provided by the township solicitor. Whereas the Archdiocese of Philadelphia and Delaware County Community College have agreed to operate, maintain, and repair or cause the operation, maintenance, and repair of the sanitary sewer line on its property and in accordance with the terms of this agreement and any other applicable regulations of the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and the township, and to indemnify the township to the extent necessary. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of Upper Darby Township, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, that the township hereby agrees to accept ownership of the sanitary sewer line pursuant to the terms and conditions of a bill of sale, operation and maintenance agreement approved by the township solicitor. So ends the reading. And President Wentz, I note that the township engineer, Mr. Galante, is here.
Great, thank you. Okay, before council, can we get a motion to approve resolution 23-21, and we'll have discussion of it after we make that motion.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay, Sadiq. And do we have a second?
Seconded.
Quinn? Okay. Okay, so hold on. So Councilman Gwynn, did you also have a question on the resolution?
Yeah, I'd like further clarification if I can, with regards to this indemnification agreement. What's the status of it, as well as the disposition of it? Would the solicitors be able to identify that? Or is that the Galante question?
Well, I think to address the indemnification agreement, that would be that Upper Darby would maintain ownership of the line, but the actual responsibility for maintenance of the line would be between the school and the Archdiocese.
Or is that indemnification meaning, for the solicitor, I guess, is that indemnification meaning that we would do it and then bill them for it, or you be clearer on that?
I'm going to defer to Sean on that.
I see your hand, Councilman Bennett. We're still working on.
Can you repeat your question, Councilor Gwynn? I'm sorry.
It says in here, the terms and conditions of the operation, maintenance, and indemnification agreement approved by the township solicitor. And I'm asking, does that indemnification agreement, is that residing with you at this present time? And what does it mean?
I have not reviewed any indemnification agreement. I don't know if Ms. Richardson has. I have not. So once I see one, I'll review it.
I have not, no.
So this is in, do we need one before the other? I guess is what I'm trying to get from the solicitor.
Well, normally we review an indemnification agreement between an authority like this. I mean, it's pretty standard. So I'm not particularly worried about it. We'll review it. And this approval of this can be conditioned upon the solicitor reviewing an indemnification agreement. I'm going to thoroughly make sure that Upper Darby is protected.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Councilman Burnett.
Thank you. In addition to that question, and I do rely on our solicitor to represent us, and I'm sure he will in that regard with regard to the indemnification. But there's also other provisions that will be identified in this maintenance and operation agreement as well. And I just want to make sure it's abundantly clear and understood, or at least that's the way I'm reading this. And if anybody can correct me if I'm misstating this, please do so. But it's my understanding that this is an existing line that serves the schools now. And effectively, we're going to treat it like basically a main. And we are in what makes this different from most of the mains in the township that the township owns and maintains, that we may own it. But if I'm interpreting this resolution correctly, all maintenance, including replacement when and if necessary, would be at the expense of the Archdiocese. Is that correct, Mr. Galante?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And I certainly trust our solicitor will capture that objective very well and clear in the operations, maintenance, and indemnification agreement. Thank you for the clarification.
And just to add on to your comments, Councilman Burnett, we are also requiring that DCC College and the Archdiocese provide us a secure, stable line. So they're going to have to do any repairs necessary, which could be replacement. We anticipate some lining that would have to be done before we take ownership, even though we won't have any maintenance responsibility for it under any circumstance under the agreement. And that's how it's been set up.
So, Mr. Galante, you'll provide the necessary input in that regard to the solicitor to ensure that that's covered in the agreement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other council members have questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of resolution 23-21, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say your name. Councilwoman Feralia is excused. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so next up we have a public hearing for ordinance number, or can we get a Solicitor Kenny, can you give us a brief on ordinance number 3092?
Sure. First of all, council may remember this goes back a couple months ago, goes back to the February meeting. There was a timing glitch as far as the advertising goes. When you advertise a zoning ordinance change, it must go to the County Planning Commission, must be advertised a couple of weeks successively, and that's why it's coming before you 2 months later. If you may remember, this genesis came from maybe almost a year ago, 9-10 months ago, related to a group home case in front of our zoning hearing board and lawsuits that followed from that. Consulted again with our zoning hearing board solicitor, Mr. Amuso, as well as Bobby Dominicis from Holston Associates, who does a lot of our insurance counsel work for the municipality, as far as making sure that our group home ordinance is compliant with current federal law. This is a constant evolving area of the law, and I anticipate within a couple of years, you'll have to change this again.
because group homes are a very litigious area. We receive many of the municipalities we're in, my firm covers 30, basically gets challenges to group home ordinances in one provision or another at different times. So we maybe come back to you in a year, 2 years, something like that, and say, hey, we have to amend this again based on a decision from one of the federal courts. So what this is doing is establishing what a group home would have to do if they're coming into Upper Darby Township. It's not making it easier. It's complying with what was current by federal law. As you know, group homes are protected, have substantial protections under the Fair Housing Law and the American with Disabilities Act, and these are very litigious areas of the law. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is a long ordinance. I know you heard it back in February. I'm sure you don't remember every detail of it. I'm going to try to summarize relevant portions of it. So on page 1, you have a definition of family, and that comes right out of the Fair Housing Act, and that is any number of individuals living in a single nonprofit housekeeping unit and doing their cooking on premises when said individuals are related by blood, marriage, or adoption, living together as a single nonprofit housekeeping unit and doing their cooking on the premises. A group home is defined therein shall be considered a family. The term specifically excludes individuals and groups occupying a boarding or rooming house, a lodging house, a club or group home, except as defined as fraternity, hotel, or similar living environment. So essentially, the definition for family is not what other people may consider a family. It is a group of people living in a house, acting essentially collectively, meaning that they are, doing wash together. They are going ahead and eating together. They're acting as a family, as defined by the Fair Housing Law. There is a definition of group living quarters, and that's a residential facility used as living quarters by 4 or more unrelated individuals, each of whom in a person with a disability within the meaning of the Fair Housing Act. There is, we broke this out and added the definition of sober living home. As you know, sober living home can have a very different purpose than a group living home. We thought it was important that we define this within our Upper Darby zoning ordinance and give slightly different criteria for approval to our zoning hearing board, because there are different licensing requirements from the state. So a sober living home is a residential facility used by 4 or more individuals residing together voluntarily or by court requirement to recover from drug, alcohol, and or substance abuse, and does not include the current illegal use or addiction to a controlled substance as defined by the U.S. Code. Such facility must also serve as a transitional environment between rehabilitation facilities and reintegration into their future lives. This definition shall include, but not be limited to, sober houses, recovery houses, or sober living environments. This term specifically includes individuals and groups occupying a boarding or rooming house, a lodging house, a club, a group living facility, a fraternity, a hotel, or similar living environment. The maximum number of residents in a sober living home shall not exceed the maximum number of occupants as set by the applicable building code, fire code, and other similar code that is sets forth a maximum occupancy limit for a dwelling unit. So section 2 references back to the Upper Darby zoning ordinance and sets special exception standards. You know, before the zoning hearing board, there are essentially 2 things. There are variances. Variances come for either uses or they come for dimensions. Special exceptions are something is presumed to be approved provided that they meet a certain level of criteria. So special exception standards, group living homes are permitted in all residential districts as used by special exceptions pursuant to Article 4 of the Upper Darby zoning ordinance and the requirements and regulations herein. Prior to obtaining a permit and special exception approval for group living quarters, the applicant shall have the burden going forward in evidence and providing the following. You may remember back in February, there was kind of a debate as to this. And
our firm's legal advice was to, per the Fair Housing Law and the American with Disabilities Act, for a group home, you cannot stick a group home strictly in an industrial area. It has to be in an area that is at least mixed, that there will be some residential use in that area, because the whole thought process is when you're in that, you want to return people to normalcy and a normal environment, not being stuck in an industrial area somewhere. That's kind of what the case law says. Because typically, a lot of municipalities would put all their group homes, say, in an industrial area, segregated a walk from the township, because it was viewed by many as an undesirable use. I know there was a vigorous debate here previously talking about different zoning districts to put it in, and I believe it was decided by a majority vote that it would apply to all, because we did not want to say pick winners, losers, or however you interpret that in a specific district or concentrate it in just one area of Upper Darby. The lot upon the group home living quarters situated shall meet the minimum area requirements established in the zoning district regulations for the zoning district in which the use is to be located. The group living quarters shall not be located in an accessory building or unit. Additionally, in order to integrate group living quarters into a neighborhood and create a deinstitutionalized setting for the residents of group living quarters, no group living quarters may be located within 500 feet of another group living quarter. Where do we get the 500 feet from? Previously, I believe our ordinance had 1,000 feet. And why we recommended 500 feet is we're not trying to necessarily be more lenient or not. We were trying to find the maximum distance that has been upheld in the federal courts on this. 500 feet was upheld in the Ninth Circuit, which is the circuit that covers California. The Third Circuit, where we live, hasn't necessarily opined on this so far, but we wanted to at least base this number on a federal court decision that has been upheld. The 1,000 foot has been struck down and has been struck down in the Third Circuit, just to let people know. But in the decision, it didn't say 1,000 feet is wrong, but you can do 400. It didn't say that, so you're kind of left. And as again, I may come back to you in a year or two and may ask to amend this, maybe go up or down based on what we see in the federal courts. Residents of group living quarters shall maintain a single household unit with shared use of living areas, eating areas, bedrooms, and food preparation and service areas, and shall share meal times and housekeeping responsibilities. Again, fitting into the family definition that we talked about. Accommodations in a group living quarter shall be provided for no more than the maximum number of occupants or residents as permitted by the building code, fire code, and any other similar code that sets forth a maximum occupancy limit for a dwelling or building. Applications for group living quarters shall specify the maximum numbers of residents or occupants to be cared for or at the facility. Applicants for group living quarters shall indicate the type of care, counseling, or treatment to be provided at the site to the extent permitted by law. You may get into HIPAA issues, but we'll ask for the information and see how forthcoming they are. And each resident's medical care shall be incidental in nature and shall not be a major element of the care provided at the facility. We're not approving hospitals here or anything related to that. This is a group home where people should be living as a family. Evidence shall be provided with the application for a group living home indicating that all applicable federal, state, and/or county certification and licensing requirements have been met for the particular type of care provided. Sewage disposal and water supply facilities shall be sufficient to handle the anticipated loading created by the proposed facility and shall meet all requirements of DEP and/or any of our local authorities. Arrangements for this collection, storage, and disposal of solid waste generated by the facility shall be made by the applicant and submitted to the township for approval and such use, so they should have a plan for that. Notwithstanding any provisions of the Upper Darby Township Building Code, the group living quarters shall be the following installed throughout the building. And this is a requirement that may be controversial, but many fire experts that in other municipalities we have represented have recommended this, and that is sprinklering and an up-to-date fire alarm system. And the big reason is when this has been challenged in other municipalities, the most recent being in East Norton, we would call our fire marshal, and he would talk about his experience in evacuating people from a group home facility, especially with challenges, and how crucial it was based on how disoriented folks would get to have sprinklering and the most comprehensive fire alarm system you can have. That may get challenged in Upper Darby, but in consultation with the administration, I think this is a condition that we all can sleep well at night, saying that we were requiring this, and I think it's very important to try to get as many group homes to comply with this as possible. And if it gets challenged, then we'll deal with that here. But it has been challenged in other places, and then they back down. So that's where we've been so far on this litigation. So I just wanted to let you know. So that's the one provision here that I could see perhaps being challenged in Upper Darby, as it has been in other places we've represented. The group living quarters must comply with the Upper Darby Township Building Code, and an applicant seeking group living quarters you shall provide with its application evidence that the building size and layout is in compliance with all the building codes. J, off-street parking must be adequate to accommodate the needs of the residents and staff. At minimum, the group living quarters must meet the minimum parking requirements for the district in which it is located. The group living quarters will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or of the district which it is located. To the extent not already addressed above, the property, including all buildings, including therein, must be in compliance with all applicable federal, state, and local laws. The group living quarters shall register with the township in writing the following: its location and individuals responsible for the facility, general type of treatment care, maximum number of residents and sponsoring agency, and shall advise the township in writing any of the original information has changed within 5 business days. Any other registration of group living quarters with any state and/or county agency for emergency preparation purposes and to the extent permitted by law should also be provided to the township, including any updates which are required. Okay, then we get into the sober living home requirements as well, as we defined in our ordinance. And many of these mirror what you just heard in the group home, but I'll try to go through them one by one and try to distinguish the ones that you didn't hear in the group home. So sober living homes are permitted in all residential districts as a use by special exception pursuant to the Upper Darby zoning ordinance and the requirements and regulations herein. Prior to obtaining permit and special exception approval for the sober living home use, the applicant should provide evidence of the following. A lot upon the sober living home or institutional residence is situated shall meet the minimum area requirements per our zoning ordinance. Residents of the sober living home shall maintain a single household unit similar to a family, as we talked about, as defined not by our definition, but by how federal law defines family. Accommodation in a sober living home shall be provided for no more than the maximum number of applicants or residents as permitted by the applicable building code. Registration with the Commonwealth in compliance with all regulations for licensure or certification as promulgated by the Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs in accordance with Pennsylvania law as amended or such other Commonwealth agency or dependent as authorized by law. There are specific licensing requirements for sober living homes. Proof that the sober living home has policies, procedures, and regulations that substantially address the following: an occupant's immediate eviction from or involuntary termination of residency in a sober living home in order to protect the health, welfare, and safety of its residents or occupants. If an occupant's eviction from or involuntary termination of residence of a sober living home is not required to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the resident or staff is therein, at least 48 hours prior, the operator shall
notify the person designated as the occupant's emergency contact or record of the occupant will no longer be a resident of the facility. Contact the appropriate county or state agency to determine the services available to the occupant, including but not limited to alcohol and drug inpatient and outpatient treatment and shelter or homeless services. Provide the information obtained from the applicable county or state agency to the occupant prior to his or her release. Prior to an occupant's eviction from or involuntary termination or residency of a sober living home, the occupant shall make available to the occupant's transportation to the address listed on the occupant's driver's license, state issued identification card, or permanent address. Rules and regulations in the event that the occupant declines and said transportation or otherwise has no permanent address, then to the operator shall make available to the occupant transportation to another sober living home or residential care facility that has agreed to accept the occupant. Rules and regulations that prohibit the use of alcohol or non-prescription drugs at the sober living home or any other recovering addict, either on or off site. Rules and regulations stating the facility cannot dispense medications unless licensed to do so. Rules and regulations that shall direct occupants to be considerate of neighbors, including refraining from engaging in excessively loud, profane, or obnoxious behavior, or anything in violation of the Township Code. And if permitted by law, supervisor, counseling, and medical services may be provided, but only to those individuals residing in the sober living home, and no outpatient services shall be provided to individuals who are not residents of the sober living home. Sewage and water facilities shall be sufficient to handle the anticipated loading requirements. Arrangements for collection, storage, and disposal of solid waste shall be made. Notwithstanding any provision of the Upper Darby Township Building Code to the contrary, a sober living home shall have the following installed throughout. Sprinklering, a fire alarm. A sober living home must comply with the Upper Darby Township Building Code, and an applicant seeking the sober living home use shall provide with its application evidence from the building size and layout as to compliance with all the building codes. All street parking must be adequate to accommodate the needs of its residents and staff of the sober living home. A sober living home will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which it is located. To the extent not already addressed above property, including all buildings located thereon, they must be in compliance with applicable federal, state, and local laws, including but not limited to the Pennsylvania UCC, Fire Code, and International Fuel Gas Code. There must be inspections. The owner or operator of agent of a sober living home shall permit annual inspections thereof by a township code enforcement officer. If the owner, operator, or agent does not permit such inspection, the code enforcement officer, the township may seek any appropriate legal or equitable relief to compel access to that. That would be an administrative warrant from a district judge. You must register sober living home with the township. You must provide proof of state licensure for the sober living home. There's a repealer clause, a severability clause, and an effective date clause. And that concludes my lengthy summary of this ordinance. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so before we get into Councilman Bennett, I do see your hand. But before we get to council, we actually have a public hearing on this ordinance. So at this point in time, I'd like to open the public hearing on ordinance number 3092. Do we have any written public comment, and are there any constituents that are in our that are on our meeting that would like to speak on this ordinance? Miss Alexis?
There's one written comment.
Okay, so before we do the written comment, are there anyone present?
Council President Wentz, Ms. Jordan has raised her hand.
Okay, okay, great. So Ms. Jordan, please come on board, and there's no time limit on you speaking because it's a public hearing on the ordinance. So go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. Can you hear me? Did I unmute myself? Okay. Just a couple questions. I think I can ask questions. So we're adding the sober living homes because we're legally required to add that to our ordinance. Is that what I'm understanding, or has that always been part of the ordinance? That's my first question. I'm not sure who can
Sure,
answer.
I'll be happy to answer that. No,
Sure.
it hasn't always been part of the ordinance, and no, you're not legally required to. It is a best practice because there's a difference between a group home and a sober living home. And a sober living home has different licensure requirements provided by the state. So when you have a different kind of use, it's always recommended in your zoning ordinance to define that use or that definition within your definitions. So that's why we're recommending a sober living home to reflect the different requirements in the conditional use process that are different than a group home, although many things may be analogous.
Okay, so I mean, it's the best practice based on your experience.
Based on my experience, I'm sure you could find another lawyer to disagree with me.
Okay. And then are there any type of timeframes for the residents? Like, is there a minimum of like 30 days, 60 days, or are these homes, I think group homes, I understand, but sober living homes, like, are the residents that can come change every day? I mean, people in and out every day, like it would be like a hotel. I mean, that's a concern if there's something like that in an area, in a residential area, that you have constant, changing of the residents. Like, if we truly want something, these homes to be part of a neighborhood, then the residents are long-term. I guess that's my question. So
my experience is that's all contained in their regulations. There are, because I've heard this testimony provided at zoning hearings, there are requirements for the amount of time absent emergency circumstances, and those are regulated in the state regulations that license the sober living home. But if you notice too, within our conditional use criteria, there was that it doesn't affect the essential character of the neighborhood. And that doesn't mean that just because you don't like a group home or a sober living home against you in that area, that that shouldn't necessarily be allowed. What that means is, I think, to cover circumstance in the extreme that you may have, because that would be a condition of any conditional use approval. And if there was a violation of such, then our zoning officer, Mr. McSween, after hearing a complaint, could issue a notice of violation and start a process to remove that approval.
Okay. And then you did say a number of times, at least I think 5 to 10, that this is, a very litigious area of the law. Now, and why is that?
Why is it a litigious area?
Yeah,
Because, number one is many communities do not want group homes or sober living homes. There are lawyers that specialize in group home law and sober living home law, and there is a financial benefit to group homes and sober living homes, but that benefit and these services are protected significantly by federal law. And so what we are trying to do is comply with federal law and put an ordinance in place that is legally defensible, that is both fair to folks that have legitimate disabilities, but also make sure that the neighborhoods of Upper Darby are protected to the fullest extent they can be under the law. If you understand my statement.
Yes, I do. And then one last question. So, currently our ordinance says that there cannot be group homes, and I guess in this case, sober living moving forward 500 feet. But now
I believe it's 1,000 in the current.
Is 1,000 the current, and then we're going to.
This one says 500, and it's based on a California decision. Because the 1,000's been struck down in our circuit, the Third Circuit, which is the federal courts that govern Pennsylvania, New Jersey.
Okay, so
I'm trying to, and it didn't. The Third Circuit didn't say 600 is fine. I didn't find that, it didn't say anywhere. It struck down the 1,000 as being too restrictive. The California courts upheld a 500-foot description, and it's not state court in California, it's federal court. So although that's not binding on what happens here in Pennsylvania, it's persuasive, or I could, if something was argued, and it wouldn't really be me, it would probably be our insurance defense counsel, Holston and Associates, or whoever was assigned defending this case, who I've worked with. I've worked with Mr. Wagner's firm, Marshall Dennehy, on these kind of cases as well, and hand in hand in crafting these things.
Okay. All right, thank you. I just need to understand.
Ms. Jordan, since I'm rusty from having over a year of not having public.
Want me to say my name and address?
Yes, please. Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
Lee Jordan, JORDAN, 90 Pilgrim Lane, Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other residents that have a question or concern, a comment on this? Sorry, I'm about to plug in my computer. Just indicates me it's about to die. So sorry about me suddenly disappearing from the screen.
Yes, Council President Wentz, there is one written comment that was submitted.
Okay, so we have just the written comment. Okay, great. I just want to make sure there wasn't anyone else in person. Okay, so then written comment, go ahead.
Kyle Johnson, 942 Stanbridge Road, Drexel Hill. Good evening, council and other township officials on the call. I had previously submitted the below comment for the March 3rd, 2021 council meeting and was advised by the solicitor that a more appropriate time for this comment regarding Ordinance 3092 was for tonight's meeting. It was recommended that I resubmit the question tonight where it is more applicable and stated that officials would have more information to respond with. Regarding ordinance number 3092, this ordinance has some glaringly vague provisions. The one that I believe requires the most attention is the phrase, alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which it is located, in reference to the group home. So I pose this question: what is the legal definition, or how will the ordinance itself define essential character? Please advise the residents what metrics will be used to determine if the current essential character of the neighborhood or district is altered by these group/sober homes. Could these
I know of no such definition in any zoning ordinance I'm aware of for this. I have seen this provision added in many zoning ordinances, and it's going to be up to the zoning hearing board as the finder of fact in this to describe what that is, and based on what the character of that current neighborhood is, because it's going to be different in different areas of Upper Darby or any other municipality. So if the zoning hearing board solicitor was writing a good opinion and he wanted to use this as a basis of a denial or some kind of condition, he would use this definition. He would define what the neighborhood is as far as housing stock, how the whole place essentially runs, the character of the neighborhood, and then how this may differ. So I do not have an exact definition of that, nor do I know exactly how to define that would fit the township as a whole.
Okay, Council President, I'll finish with the comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was a comment. I'm sorry.
I think there were multiple parts.
Okay, no problem.
We took care of one part.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Could these metrics include things like police responses, official complaints to the township, etc.? I hope these vital questions can be addressed before any ordinance is considered for enactment. Thank you for all your efforts and dedication to our township. End of comment, and that's the only written comment.
As far as police calls to a group home, I do not think that will. So the question would be, would that alter the essential character of the neighborhood? Okay, if there were significant police calls to a group home, what I would say to that is, okay, so
if there was an approval for a group home, and one of the conditions were that it doesn't alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and then there were police calls as far as a violation of that Mr. McSween would issue a notice of violation, and that notice of violation would then be heard by a court to see if that fit the characteristic. So I don't know what a court would say related to that. I think like anything, it would have to be, it's very case specific. So, and what I can say this is both federal and state courts give great deference because of the federal and state law protections of group homes to group home residents in general, in my experience.
Okay, we're not at council yet. So I see Councilman Burke and I see Councilman Bonnet and Councilman Burke are on the queue for the council part of the conversation. But we're technically in the public comment section. So seeing that we do not have anyone else from the public to weigh in, is that correct? So there was a question of if anyone wanted to call in to get on to this, since we do have two more ordinances. If someone wanted to call in to take part in the public hearings, probably should have said this at the beginning of the meeting. I'm sorry that I did not.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just got a message for it.
Okay, yeah, so if someone wanted to call in at this time, Ms. Dobbins, can someone call in at the number that we have on the thing, or is it better for them to register at upperdarby.org /council to still register to?
Council President Wentz, we received no phone calls for tonight's meeting. If the public hearing is still open, certainly we would address those phone calls, but are you continuing the public hearing?
There was someone who apparently wanted to try and reach out. I wasn't sure if it was for this particular hearing, but I just wanted to check the best pathway for them to reach us at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, they're also certainly welcome to register.
Okay, and then if they wanted to call in, they could call at 484-393-5861, right?
Yes, but those are voicemails. That is not live calling.
Okay, so then they need to go to upperdarby.org /council to register in order to be able to get onto this meeting.
Correct, but I would encourage them to do so as soon as possible.
Right, because this public hearing is about to end. But you would be able to do that for ordinance number 3096 or 3098 that are still remaining. So
yes.
Okay, great, thank you. That's something I'll remember to announce at the beginning of the meeting next time around. Okay, so seeing that there is no more public comment, I officially close the public hearing for 3092. Can we get a motion to approve ordinance number 3092? And then once we get that motion, then we can start having our council conversation.
I would like to make a motion.
Second.
Silva?
Is this for advertising or?
No.
No, this is for adoption. The motion to advertise was at the February meeting.
Silva and Tunis. Okay, so I have Councilman Bonnet and Burke and Tunis that have had their hands up. So Bonnet.
Thank you, President Wentz. I have a number of questions and comments. First, it's I clearly understand that group living quarters are governed under the Federal Fair Housing Act. And I fully comprehend and understand our limitations with regard to locating them and regulating them, I should say. And I think if I heard the solicitor's answer to Mrs. Jordan's question about whether or not sober living homes are regulated, Mr. Solicitor, is it correct? Am I correct in saying that there are no regulations, federal regulations governing those facilities?
There's state regulations, but the federal case law now is giving them the same group home protections in recent case law.
In other words,
yeah, they fall under the ADA. Yes, and
I
fair
understand
housing.
the ADA, yeah, but the ADA.
No, they
and
fall
fair
under both.
housing are-
Yes,
So group sober living homes.
but there are a different set of state regulations. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
They enjoy the same federal protections, but there are different state regulations.
Okay, so they're governed under the Fair Housing Act?
Yes.
Okay, so we have the same restrictions for regulating them as we do with group living quarters?
Yes, and that's how the ordinance is drafted. Yeah.
All right. All right. Now, based on our earlier discussion, when I say earlier, at an earlier meeting, it was my question, which I believe you answered, is that we do not have to have these in every residential district. Is that correct?
You do not have to have them in every residential district.
Okay.
The
All
district that you put them must have some residential component.
Gotcha. Now, group living quarters can be rather innocuous in terms of the way they are used. I think they can fit into a community, although they're probably very much misunderstood. And frankly, I have my concerns about them too. But for the life of me, I don't know why we would not, for sure, regulate sober living homes to one residential district. Now, I don't know which residential district that should be. That should be something that should be studied by the Planning, Zoning, and Building Code Committee, perhaps. But I can't support this ordinance to allow a sober living home to be located in every single residential district if it need not be done that way. Second question, I believe that for sure group living quarters are regulated by the state. Is that correct? They're licensed by the state, in fact.
I believe so, yes.
I believe so as well. Yeah. I'm not sure about sober living.
Sober living homes definitely are. They have very specific state requirements. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good to know. On page 4 of this ordinance, under section I, halfway down, it says that the zoning officer may request that an applicant provide, this is part of the special exceptions, that the zoning officer may request that an applicant provide a dimensional floor plan indicating the size of each room, et cetera, et cetera. I think that should have been shall request. It shall be mandatory. It's the only way that the Code Enforcement Department is going to be able to determine whether or not it complies with the size requirements given the number of occupants proposed to occupy that kind of a facility.
Well, it says that they must comply. If the building code official is not satisfied, then they may request that drawing, so to speak. So I think that's how it's meant to be read, Counselor.
Right, but I think that it shall be required. Anyhow, it's my comment.
It is in the one.
And by the way, these, although they may not be the same paragraph letters in the sober living facilities, these same comments apply.
Okay.
Also, item J, all street parking must be adequate. Now, we really downgraded that because in the current ordinance, I should say, all street parking spaces shall be provided for each staff member on duty, and one off-street parking space shall be provided for each 4 residents. So there's a ratio requirement, not specific in this. It simply says it has to comply with the minimum parking requirements of the district in which it's located. That may be one or two parking, that's probably 2 parking spaces in most cases, if not all cases. One or two more comments. Relative to trash collection, is it clear that these facilities must provide private trash collection?
Yeah, but so I'll have to comply with township ordinances.
That's
Yes.
kind of the way I interpret it, but just had the question. And just a footnote on page 9, paragraph 1, it says, if required by state or federal law, all caretakers, administrators, and staff of a sober living home must be duly licensed and or certified by the Department of Public Welfare. I believe that should be the Department of Human Services, because I don't believe there is a Department of Public Welfare anymore. And it should say the Pennsylvania Department, by the way. Again, I emphasize that I cannot support this ordinance as the way it is written, allowing a sober living home in every single residential district. End of my comments.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Councilman Burke. Council members, I've put a list in the sequence that I saw your hands raised. If any other council members want to speak that you're not on that list I just put in the chat, please let me know, okay? So next up is Councilman Burke.
Thank you, President West. Question to the solicitor. So we are not required by the federal government to have a sober home, correct?
I don't understand your, as I said, sober living homes have now enjoy the same federal protections group homes do under the ADA and fair housing law as interpreted by courts.
Yes, they're protected, but we're not required. Is that correct?
I don't understand. So
if we said no to no sober homes, would we get sued? Would the township get sued if we said no to sober homes?
Yes.
It's not ADA. It's not American Disabled Act. It's not.
No, it is. So you would get sued.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do they pay school tax and property tax, sober homes?
Well, so they are, I assume, going to ask for nonprofit status, and that is determined by the Delaware County Board of Assessment, I believe, not the township.
So if we took the footage of Upper Darby Township and we landed one at every 500 feet, who would be paying the bills of Upper Darby Township if they all got nonprofit status?
Well, sure. As you know, Council Burke, I understand that's a statement, but I can't answer that. You know.
Okay. So
as I said, nonprofit status is decided by the Board of Assessment, not by this council or me or anybody else.
Okay. So I understand your answer, but my question is there a limit of how many homes that can go into a township, or can we make a limit due to the fact of financial responsibility of the taxpayers in this township that this council has?
The 500 feet was the most restrictive that I could find that was upheld in the federal courts. As far as the financial impact or taxes in a township, that is not something that the federal courts consider.
But is it something that we can consider as council?
Of course you can consider as council, but what I'm telling you is a group home applicant enjoys protections under federal law that they are entitled to come into Upper Darby or any other township, apply, so long as they're acting as a functional family unit and comply with state and local laws, they are permitted to operate in Upper Darby or any other township. Again, this is not an answer that I necessarily want to give. You're not the first counselor that's asked me these kind of questions in other places. I'm only trying to tell you, based on my experience, the holes in our current ordinance, and I'm trying to fix them, because if our current ordinance is challenged, I think it would be found unconstitutional. And that was not only my opinion,
That was the opinion of our insurance defense counsel. That's all.
And I agree the work that you have done, Sean, but my concern is the limiting how many we can have due to the financial burdening of the taxpayers.
I personally, we're free to try to put that in there. I've not seen that as criteria that's been upheld by the courts.
Okay. Well, my concerns for the taxpayers. Unfortunately, I can't support this ordinance either due to the financial burden of the taxpayers.
Okay, so next up we have Councilman Tunis.
Comments. Many of my colleagues expressed some very valid concerns. The reality of it is some of these homes we're talking about have been on the edge of the 7th district, right? And what I'm really, my position on this is maybe it may not need to be in every residential district, but it's going if we vote on it, it's gonna have to be in every council district. What we're not gonna do is have just homes just thrown onto the 6th and the 7th district like they have in the past. These places, if you guys ever been to like the Fernwood area, or the political term is the 7-6 of the township, you can look, they're in the 7th district. No one complained then. And it's now the fear is going to come into the entire township. And that's my position. If we have them, they should be in the entire township, not just thrown at the edge of the township in the 6th and 7th, like we normally do things. So that's my position on that.
Thank you.
Can I reply to that, President Wentz?
No. We have a lot of council members that haven't spoken yet, so you'd be a second time around.
2nd district, also some in the 2nd district. So it's not just. Yeah. So what are we gonna do? Just put them in those 4 districts? I think that's the thing. It just seems like people just don't want them in their neighborhood, and it should be in others. That's how it sounds to me. And I'm sure others can agree or disagree.
Okay, so next up we have Councilman Wagner.
Thank you very much. I want to say to the solicitor and your folks, I really think you've worked very, very hard on this. I think we all realize that. And this is not an easy issue. It's a very complicated issue. This is, I guess, the classic, oh yeah, I think we should do this, but not in my neighborhood type of issue. It's a normal reaction, I guess, or a common reaction anyway. So, and I agree, we really have an obligation to try to comply with the law in a reasonable way. I personally believe your choice of 500 feet is a reasonable limitation given the current state of the law on this. But I really do have a few other questions that I'd like to ask here. I recall that there was an application for a group home to be approved in my district, probably 8 blocks from my own house, near where the mayor lives and so on. This was not just last year, it was several years back. One of the real problems with that particular application turned out to be the inability of the promoter of this particular operation, the operator of this particular group home, to demonstrate their own financial ability to sustain it on a long-term basis. And the very genuine concern was developed in the neighborhood that they'd be there for a year or two and then it would collapse and the property would be abandoned. And when they were asked about that at a public hearing on it, they really had no good answers to it. And I'm concerned about that now. Is there any reason why we couldn't include some reasonable requirement to show the financial ability to sustain the operation and support it, and include that in our ordinance? Is there any reason, Mr. Kilkenny, we could not include that? Because I think that's a very real concern with many of these group home operations.
So there are, as we and Mr. Wagner, there are obviously good group home operators and not so good group home operators.
Yeah.
There are a lot of requirements in here
to include, especially the sprinklering and the fire suppression. So that to me, like, kicks in this, you got to be really, really serious in that, as well as all the licensing requirements, which I understand even at the state and federal level are pro forma because of the protections that are given under the law. I mean, good group home operators, in my experience, put in an application, they talk about their experience in other group homes and other municipalities, because I've seen it. And although, like I said, typical NIMBY situation, people do not like it, people kind of nod and say, this is the grace of God go I, and I may have a relative that may need to partake in a group home like this. That being said, I'm not these, like I said, these requirements were taken out of our own experience, case law, talking with Holston and Associates, and criteria that we could develop that would be legally defensible. What I would suggest is, if council had the votes tonight, go ahead and move this forward as written. And I will look at that criteria, and I will talk to Mr. DeDominicis again and see if there's any criteria that he's aware of, because he defends these a lot more than me, even in federal court and stuff. And criteria that you come up with or you come up with that has been upheld, and I'll be happy to consider, recommending an amendment to the administration and council to include that criteria. I'm just not aware of any of that. And also, when I had this kind of reviewed by them, I didn't maybe ask that specific question, but I'm not aware of any.
All right, and I thank you for that answer. So just to be clear for all council members, right now, there is no such requirement in this ordinance, no requirement that the operator demonstrate their financial ability to operate the facilities on any long-term basis.
Yeah, they would have to put on their case, perhaps the zoning hearing board, if not satisfied, to use one of these criteria for a turn down, like I said, sprinkling or something like that, so they didn't do it. But yes, on that exact point, there's nothing that says that. You're correct.
Okay, thank you. One other question I need to ask. Is there anything in our current requirements now in this ordinance as drafted, which would prohibit groups of people who have convictions of certain types of crimes, like sexual offenses or drug offenses and so on? Anything to prohibit that?
So they in this ordinance, it does requirements that they go ahead and put forward the kind of disability, the kind of group home they're going to be operated. In another township I'm litigating right now, a group home operator came in for a group home license, was granted in many years, did not follow the township's requirements that when things changed, they had to go ahead and notify the township and the authorities as such, and they went into perhaps a not so desirable group home use, and we're litigating that. I don't want to get into the specifics of that. So the answer is the zoning hearings board is going to have to look at each application. They're going to have to look at if that kind of group home falls under the definitions of ADA, family, and disability. As far as parsing all of that, I don't think there's anything you can put in the ordinance to exactly achieve that or limit that per se. So,
okay, thank you.
Not a perfect answer, but that's my answer. Yeah.
I get it. Thank you. Final question. What about proximity to schools? Is there an ability for us to limit that under certain reasonable circumstances?
I have not seen that in the case law specifically, because of essentially the case law and all the cases that follow say that the group home, it should be acting as any other home in a residential neighborhood. And I know that's not the stigma as such, but I've never seen a prohibition from schools be upheld. But again, when I talked to Mr. DeDominicis as far as the financial viability of that, I'll look at the case law again. If I see something like that, I promise you I'll come back to the administration and council. And if it could be upheld, I'll suggest an amendment.
Okay, thank you. And again, I know you've worked very hard on this, and we all appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilman Quinn?
Make sure I'm turned on. Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, I've got a couple of comments or issues. One word I think got omitted. I didn't even recognize it when I first gone through it, but picked it up later. I think you dropped the word "of." That should be in, like, on page 3, section G, Township for approval as part of is omitted, the application for such use. And that's repeated at in another one of your areas. I think it's on page 7H. Again, the same issue there. But with regards to the substantive issues that have been brought up by different people, I was wondering if there could be a bonding requirement if their failure to maintain the property in a manner consistent with the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a reasonable condition placed upon the, placed by the zoning hearing board on a condition of approval. I'll be honest with you, it probably would not be upheld because I would have heard of such requirement beforehand. But as I promised Mr. Wagner, I will look into that issue. And if it can be required or inserted in the ordinance, I will come back to the administration and council with a recommendation to amend.
And this may be going back to what our old legislation had been, and not saying that it is correct, but I remember when there was consideration of putting in a production facility to produce cannabis, that we had 1,000-foot radius that people.
That was in the state act, though. That's the difference. It was in the state medical marijuana act.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But
there's no such requirement that I'm aware of in the federal case law dealing with group homes.
Okay.
In fact, the case law leans on being less lenient on group homes. That's kind of how the case law favors.
Can you, as far as being within 500 feet of an existing group home or other institution, could you use the same 500 feet to be within a school?
I'll look at that issue.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'll look at that
as
issue.
a way of
And if we can,
satisfying.
I'll suggest an amendment. Yep.
Okay. That was the extent of my comments. Thank you.
Okay, great. Next up, we have Councilwoman Billups.
Thank you, Council President Wentz. I have a question and then I have a comment. So my question is, if maybe someone can get back to me. Do we know how many sober or group homes or is actually in the township and where they are? Does anyone know that? And if they can they get that information back to me?
I do not know that. I'm sure Mr. Rangione can talk to Mr. McSween and find out who's been registered. I don't know, Mr. Rangione, if you know.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can look into it as you suggested for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So, and I have a comment to Ms. Jordan, I think when she asked about people going out and I guess the longevity of people who are in sober living homes, or I don't know if you guys call them recovery houses, but it's been my experience, if they are licensed and they are run by reputable people, they usually stay there for about 30 to 180 days. And then the individual, and they help them to get transitional housing. So because that's not housing where they live there. Then they help them to get transitional housing so they can transition to a more permanent place. So, so you're not going to have people going in and out every single day. usually if people can't handle the sober living, they may leave. That's true. But if it's done correctly, you're not going to have people going in and out of the house every day like it's like a family member, whatever that term means in for a sober living or recovery house. So I just want to, if the resident is still there, I just want to let her know that that's been my experience with sober living or recovery houses. You may see different people, but it's not people going in and out every single day unless they're going to work or anything like that, or other programs like that. So just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Councilman Silva?
Yes, Council President. Thank you. I think if I could just get some clarification when some of my colleagues are discussing districts, I am assuming that they mean zoning districts such as R1, R3, not councilmatic districts. If I could get some clarification on that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, it would be zoning districts. I don't want to speak for any of the councilors, but yes, this lines up with zoning. It would line up with zoning districts, and you could constrict this to one zoning district in the township if you wanted to. I believe that's what Councilor Bonnet was requesting, or several zoning districts when the motion to advertise came forward. Doesn't refer to councilmanic district. It's zoning districts. The only requirement is the zoning district where these are permitted must have a residential requirement to them. You can't just stick them in an institutional area or an industrial area.
Okay. And then further clarification as well, as far as like putting something in the ordinance, like barring them from being near a school or what have you. I mean, there's still guidelines to where certain people can't live near a school. For instance, if they're guilty of certain crimes or what have you, that they have to be maintained a certain distance from school. Like that would still apply if they were in a group home or not. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so it would seem like that's not really a necessary addition to this ordinance.
I said I'll research it and get back to council if it's permitted. Off the top of my head, I don't think it will be, but if it is, I will come back to council administration with a possible amendment.
Okay, I appreciate the clarifications, and I just like to make a comment. It's easy for us, I think, as people maybe to cast judgment or people in situations that sometimes require extra help or have different needs. I think it's important for us as a council, as people, as residents of the township, to be open and compassionate of people in whatever situation that they might be. So I am in support of this ordinance, and I recognize its importance, and I do appreciate all the work that you, the solicitors, have done in putting this forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Gwynn, did you have your hand up for a second round? Okay,
Yes.
So Councilman Gwynn and Councilman Burke for a second round, is that correct? So Councilman Gwynn, go ahead.
I just wanted
I'm sorry,
to,
before you do, just to verify, is there anyone else who hasn't already spoken that wants to speak before I start our second round? Okay, it's Councilman Siddiq. I see you now. So Councilman Gwynn, I'll get back to you. Councilman Siddiq.
Yeah, my question is like, even is a zoning area, zoning district, if the most of the resident opposite, what will be our stand on, township stand on that one? That most of the people don't want it, that group living quarters or sober living homes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say, Councilor Siddiq, I represent a lot of municipalities. This is a very, and I thank Councilor Wagner, but this is a very tough issue. This is not one I particularly love advocating for or fighting for, because I know how a lot of councilors and residents feel. but it's my duty as your township solicitor to instruct you in the law and try to keep us out of court and keep our ordinances legal and compliant. So that's why I'm, suggesting this. It's not necessarily, something I really want to do and get a lot of questions on,
So actually, Councilman Siddiq, I think as per your question, if assuming, say, hypothetically speaking, this ordinance passes, right? And then a group home, a sober living home applies to run their business, to get a home in our community, right? And so it goes to the zoning board if they need any variances. So that's the time for the residents to, if they oppose it, to bring it to the zoning board for opposing it. And that's
yeah, they would be notified and they would have the opportunity to come to the zoning hearing and express their concerns. Yes.
Right. So just like Thompson Track, just like any other issue that comes before our zoning board, it's up to our zoning board to uphold our ordinances. And this ordinance gives them guidelines for them to follow accordingly of what council is looking for and what we're looking for.
Sure, it's good to know. And thank you so much for working very, very hard.
Great, thank you. So we have Councilman Gwynn and then Councilman Burke. Go ahead.
I think it was brought up by somebody else, but I want to reiterate it. I think it's important that we incorporate in this ordinance the requirements with regards to parking for the attending staff, and recognizing that in many instances, the staff has to do a changeover, a conversion. And so it's, if you have a one-to-one in terms of the staff being there for the occupants that are in this quarters, you're going to need an additional space for a period of time as somebody's coming in to pick up on the next shift. And unfortunately, many locations are not accommodating in that issue, and it can create added problems in the neighborhoods. And that's why I think it's important to have this ordinance incorporate the requirements for parking for the occupants in the house, as well as those providing the services to them. And
so I hear what you're saying, Councilor Gwynn. And this is the tension between hearing what you're saying and what the law says. Because from a group home perspective, they're to be treated like any other single family home coming into a residential neighborhood and should comply with those parking requirements. I think the zoning hearing board would be well within their rights to ask those questions and go ahead and base a reasonable condition with additional parking requirements, but I don't think we can go ahead and create a catch-all for each group home. You must have 2 additional spaces, because then the group home wouldn't be treated like any other home coming into the zoning district, if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, I realize what you're saying, but the difference is that you have a situation where people are either going to be left without protection and coverage, which you need, or you're going to have them parking elsewhere.
So having been sent many, many times, not in Upper Darby, but in other townships, to oppose group homes as a township solicitor in front of zoning hearing boards, what you will, and I don't represent group home applicants, never have, but what they'll normally say is that their residents specifically often don't have the same intensity or need for car use as 2 teenagers living on Oak Street or whatever. So that will be their argument, what they'll say in the zoning hearing board. And I've seen zoning hearing boards dig into it a little more and provide additional criteria or requirements. And then it's up to that group home if they want to go ahead and appeal that condition. And at that time, if there's a group home that's specifically abhorrent or something that you have some genuine concerns about that it would really, is not a great use for that neighborhood. You could always authorize, or the administration would authorize our firm to oppose, or you as an individual counselor could go ahead and oppose, or you could, instruct your residents to raise those concerns.
Actually, I'd like to respond. Also, our zoning board has already dealt with a similar situation, and they dealt with it accordingly to that specific situation. And they asked the right questions, and they, really dug into it, and they, did their jobs. So I think to a certain degree, we have to acknowledge that they're doing their job upholding our ordinances. And we got to give them their leeway to do it. And we also have to follow the law.
I wasn't trying to suggest they weren't. I just was trying to say that in the incorporation of this ordinance, that it could also have language to refer to the other ordinances as it relates to the parking.
My personal opinion, again, this is me, I've seen the parking issue come up in almost every zoning hearing in other townships related to group homes. And as Councilor Wentz talked about in Upper Darby, and I think the zoning hearing board always raises it. I'll be honest with you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Burke.
Thank you, President Wentz. First, I'd like to start off and thank all council people here on council for all their good questions, and solicitor, thank you for your hard work. One question: the group home, sober home that you're litigating right now, are they still operating as a group home?
Yes.
So even though it could be in violation, they'll still operate, correct?
So it's currently went to the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas in another township I represent, and we won, but now it's getting appealed to the Commonwealth Court. And a stay was not granted by the lower court, so it allowed them to continue to operate.
Okay,
Even though it was
thank you very much.
requested. So,
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so
and there's also federal litigation too, but the state litigation is going first.
Councilman Tunis.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick point of correction to my earlier statement. When I say council districts, I really want to see something where if we put in this in different residential districts, it's not just in a certain parts of the township, it's in the entire township. That was that's what I meant to say. Just want a point of correction.
Thank you. So I just, I appreciate everyone who has, all council members that have spoken and have asked very important questions. We've had great dialogue on this. Thank you, Solicitor Kilkenny, for answering all the questions and also being willing, to look further into the specific ones and so forth for future amendments as accordingly. I just want to point out that I don't think there's a single council person, I could be wrong, that doesn't know someone who may be in a situation or may have been in a situation that would put them in a group home or a sober living home at some point in time in their life. And considering that we started off this meeting talking about the pathways of people who are dealing with the disease of addiction, and how our police are working with the district attorney and attorney general of Pennsylvania to bridge that gap in the law enforcement side of the equation to make sure that anyone who asks for help can get help. And if we don't allow group homes and especially sober living homes throughout the township of Upper Darby, then we're basically telling that those residents of ours are not, that they should not live in our township if they're under, if they have this disease. And I just want to make sure that we're clear that We've all had I know I've had loved ones that deal with this addiction, this disease, and it affects all families somewhere along the line. And I think that it's really important to make sure that it is possible for these group homes and sober living homes to exist in our township. Ideally, we want them to be run correctly. We want them to follow the laws. We want them to, respect our communities and so forth. But we also need to respect our residents. And many of our residents would possibly be taking part in one of these homes. And I just want to put that in everyone's ear and point that out, because I think that we need to get into we have to acknowledge the personal impact of some of what has been suggested here this evening. So thank you. And I see Councilman Silva's hand. Or was it?
No, that's not. Thank you, Council President. Yeah, I was just thinking this is a pretty obviously this is kind of a charged topic. But I do feel like the solicitors put a lot of effort to try to cover all the technicalities. And I know that we can't legislate out all the technicalities because it is a very technical and very complicated issue. I would like to actually call the question, because I feel like otherwise we could be debating this forever.
Okay, great. So we have a call the question. So can we get a motion to call the question? So we have
I'd like to make a motion.
And a second by, sorry, I just need to have another page, hold on. Because we have to do a second vote for a specific vote for call the question, vote. And it was made by Silva and seconded by Tunis. And because it's on an ordinance, do we need a roll call vote? Solicitor Kilkenny?
Well, this is just on calling the question, so I think you're fine with a voice vote, but for the ordinance itself, we'll need a roll call.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so 3092. So all those in favor of calling the question of 3092, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say your name. Ayes have it. Great. And then we are going to move on to the roll call vote. Ms. Phillips for 3092.
Thank you, Council President Wentz. Councilor Tunis? Excuse me.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Put on the spot.
Councilor Phillips is a yes. Councilor Silva?
Yes.
Councilor Blackwell?
Yes.
Councilor Gwynn?
Yes.
Councilor Burke?
No.
Councilor Sadiq?
Yes.
Councilor Faralia is excused. Councilor Barnett?
No.
Councilor Wagner?
No.
And Council President Wentz.
Yes. 1, 2, 3. 7 yes. Ordinance passes. Thank you very much for a healthy discussion on this ordinance. And thank you very much, Solicitor and Richardson, for all your hard work.
Thank you, solicitors. That was a tough job. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the respectful debate. And always try to do our best. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so next up, we have Solicitor Kilkenny again with a brief on ordinance number 3096.
Okay. People may remember from our last committee meeting, ordinance 3096 was the property maintenance code that we put into effect several months back. There was, if people may remember, we did the codification around the same time, and this was not included in the codification. So it kind of slipped between the cracks. So what happens is we don't want to do a whole new recodification. What we want to do is we need to reenact this ordinance so it's still in effect because it was not included in the codification. So when the next codification comes, this is included in the codification. If everybody follows what I said. So again, it was a glitch. It should have been included in the codification. This was voted on by council less than a year ago for property maintenance. It was not included in the codification. So therefore it's not in effect because it wasn't encompassed in all the Upper Darby ordinances. So to put it back into effect, we have to re-adopt it, and then it will be caught in the next codification.
Great. Thank you. So at this point in time, we need to open a public hearing for ordinance number 3096. Public hearing. So is there any public comment from residents that are on the line or any written comments?
No written comments.
Okay. And do we have any comments from our attendees? I'm seeing none.
No emails.
See no hands and no emails. Okay, public hearing. Great. Thank you to our two attendees that are still hanging on. Okay, so seeing no one raising their hand to take part in a public hearing is now closed. At this point in time, can we get a motion to approve ordinance number 3096?
So moved.
Phillips?
Gwen. Seconded.
And Gwen. Okay, are there any questions or concerns from council members on this? Okay, seeing none. Can we get a roll call vote, Ms. Phillips?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President.
All good.
Councilor Tunis,
Yes.
Councilor Billups is a yes. Councilor Silva,
Yes.
Your mic on.
Sorry, I had mute problems.
Yes, I muted everybody.
Councilor Blackwell,
Yes.
Councilor Gwen,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Siddiq,
Councilor Siddiq, can you turn your mic on and or your camera? Councilman Siddiq? Councilman Siddiq,
Yeah,
are you yes vote for this ordinance?
yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Faragher is excused. Councilor Barnett,
No.
Councilor Wagner,
No.
and Councilor President Wentz.
Yes.
Okay.
And ordinance passes. Thank you. All right, and yes is 8, no's are 2, and excused is 1. Okay, so next up, we have Finance and Appropriations Committee, co-chairs Gwynn and Silva, members Blackwell and Burke. Solicitor Richardson, can you give us a briefing on ordinance number 3098?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Okay, so this is a ordinance that is clarifying the township officers and officials authorized to carry out ordinance 3083 and 3084, which were the bond ordinances, was the refinancing and the original financing that was taking place earlier last year. That being said, under the Home Rule Charter, it is required that the mayor sign off. So this just clarifies that position. I will just read the applicable sections. And so now therefore council does hereby ordain and enact the following. Section 1, the chief
How have you been feeling?
of the township attestation of the chief municipal clerk in their absence, the president or vice president of council, along with the secretary, or any assistant secretary of council, or any other appropriate officer of the township as designated by the bond ordinances, as the case may be, are hereby authorized to execute any agreements, instruments, or documents, and to do or cause to be done any and all acts and things deemed necessary or appropriate for the carrying out of the purposes of the bond ordinances and to comply with the debt act. Section 2, the purpose of this ordinance is to amend and supplement the bond ordinances, which ordinances shall remain in full force and effect as amended and supplemented hereby. All ordinances are parts of ordinances which are inconsistent herewith are hereby repealed. And there's any sections, paragraph, subsection, clause, or provision of the ordinance shall be declared invalid or unconstitutional by a court of competent jurisdiction. Such decision shall not affect the validity of this ordinance as a whole or any part thereof other than that portion specifically declared invalid. There's an effective date, and so ends the summary and reading. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Can we get a public hearing on ordinance number 3098? So is there any written comments, or do any of our attendees wish to speak on this ordinance?
There are no written comments.
Okay, and I'm seeing no raised hands with our attendees. Thank you for still being here. Okay, so sorry, ordinance 3098. Public hearing is officially open. Seeing no written comments or attendees raising their hands, public hearing is now closed. Sorry, just taking some notes. Can we get a motion to approve ordinance number 3098? You have to
make a motion.
Second it.
And Sadiq.
Is there any council person who has a question?
I was just about to ask that. Thank you for jumping the gun again. Any council members have any questions or concerns on ordinance number 3098? Okay, seeing none. Can we get a roll call vote of 3098?
Yes. Councilor Tunis?
Yes.
Councilor Billups is a yes. Councilor Silva?
Yes.
Councilor Blackwell?
Yes.
Councilor Gwynn?
Yes.
Councilor Burke?
Yes.
Councilor Sadiq?
Yes.
Councilor Faragher is excused. Councilor Barnett?
Yes.
Councilor Wagner?
Yes.
And Council President Wentz.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. 10 yes, 1 excuse. Great. So next up, we have solicitors.
Thank you very much, Council President Wentz. I feel like much of this meeting has been the solicitor's report. As you heard, our firm has been working this month on these various ordinances and resolutions that the council had before you, most specifically the group home ordinance, which was a very interesting debate this evening. Then 2 is just to bring you up to speed. I know council frequently asks about St. Eugene's. We have received a defined appraisal. We have conveyed that to Mr. McBlain, counsel for St. Eugene's. And what we're waiting on is, it was our recommendation that we do a phase 1 environmental for a matter of due diligence. A phase 1 environmental before the township takes ownership of a property. We want to make sure that there are no significant environmental problems, which the township would therefore inherit and therefore would be responsible for and have to clean up. The 2 things we always recommend is if there's any question whatsoever, that there be a phase 1 environmental, and that obviously there has been a title report. Title report came back clean. We've conveyed this to Mr. McBlain. I believe the Monsignor hasn't been able to get back to our environmental consultant on some general questions, which are part of the phase 1 environmental.
once those are done, I would anticipate moving forward and, going forward with, closing on the property. So I know that's always a question the council asks. And so there is our current update. I believe Miss Richardson received an email coordinating the phase 1 environmental questions with Mr. McBlain the beginning of this week or the end of last, in my recollection. And she's nodding. So that concludes the solicitor's report, subject to any of your questions.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any questions for our solicitors now that I've gone through and muted you all? I'm seeing no raised hands. Oh, Councilman Gwynn. Was that you? No, it's just you unmuting yourself. That's it. Here, there you go. All right. I mute you so that there's not feedback. I don't know if you've noticed there's feedback sometimes. All right, cool. So thank you very much, solicitors. Now we have old business. So if you have old business, please raise your hand. I see Councilman Barnett and Siddiq and Gwynn. So Councilman Barnett.
Thank you. I consider that this is old business only because I want to address something the mayor said earlier in this meeting. The mayor said that not quite a number of years ago, there was an attempt to rezone the property, which is known as the Mazzino tract, across from the Drexel Line Shopping Center, and that it was to become high-density residential. It was never intended to become high-density residential. It was intended to become clustered residential at the same ratio per acre of units as the present zoning allows. So if the present zoning would allow, let's say, 4 units per acre, that's what the proposed zoning would be, 4 units per acre, but it would be a clustered development. So the intent of that was to preserve a lot of open land that would be used for conservation purposes or recreational purposes among the residents of that particular development. However, it never moved forward. End of my comments.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Siddiq.
Attempt it.
Yes.
You didn't get it. And what you're saying is not what happened 12 years ago, but that's fine. Councilman Barnett.
It is precisely what happened. It was clustered.
What happened was it wasn't rezoned. That's what actually happened. And keep talking about what you wanted to do.
No, you're right. It didn't resume. It died. It died. I freely admit that. We did not pursue it. But it was not high density.
Okay.
Councilman Siddiq.
The last week, the Upper Darby Muslim community observing the holy month of Ramadan, and wish a good luck to everyone. And also, we have a successful vaccine event in our mosque. 218 people get vaccinated. So many residents and many volunteers the support. On behalf of the organization, I'd like to thank everybody who participate in this good cause for vaccination. And also thanks again to our mayor and other elected officials as well as our CAO to make it happen, the project in Power Lane and Market Street. And the residents in that area will be very, very happy to see this project get in place. Thank you.
Thank you. And I kind of forgot who that third person was. It Councilman Gwynn wanted to speak or was, yes. Okay, Councilman Gwynn. You have to unmute yourself because I muted you.
Thank you. I have a couple things on the old business side. I would hope that I can get copies of the traffic calming that was going to be done in the 4th District, as you proposed, so I can share it with the St. Lawrence Parish. I think they're interested in what's happening there. I also have put in a request that will be presented at the next committee session. I've gotten signatures, or I shouldn't say the residents have gotten signatures to have a stop sign put at Keystone or Landfair and Keystone, as there are no stop signs in the area, and it's kind of a free-for-all. And they did have one accident of a vehicle going into one of the neighbors there.
Isn't this coming up in May, though?
It'll be at the next committee meeting.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe it should have been under new business, but I'm sorry.
So our traffic engineer has installed a speeding, it's not a trap, a speed test on Keystone there. So, you know, these things take a lot of time, but and we don't have like a traffic department. You know what I mean? We don't have traffic.
It's on traffic sign being requested is on Landfair.
Right, it's part of a traffic study that we're already doing, but that's good. I mean, is there a petition with signatures and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And you handed it into Alexis?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So, well, it sounds like it's on its way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have any old business? Okay, seeing none, new business. Ms. Phillips?
Thank you, Council President Wentz. So, as everyone knows that I am on the re-entry for Delco. So we finally have a mission statement and a vision statement. We are now working on our next phase, which is the strategic plan and bylaws. So in the strategic plan, we're looking for executive leadership, and then we'll have subcommittees. So if you know of any, the term that we're using now instead of re-interest is formerly incarcerated or formerly incarcerated individuals that may want to volunteer. If you want to shoot me their name and address, I can submit that information to Melanie, who is in charge of the program. So so that's that. So we're hoping to have the coalition up and running by September-ish. I'm not going to say by September, but you know, because there's still a lot of moving parts. So that's that. And also I got a text like a minute ago that said that there is a Moderna vaccine on Sunday, April 25th, 2021 by Nurses United. First doses only, and they can call for an appointment. And the number is at the Drexel Hill Firehouse. At 323 Edmonds Avenue. The number is 267-584-4695. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for representing us there. Very important. Councilman Silva? You're muted. I'm sorry, you need to unmute yourself because I did mute you.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right. So, yes, May 8th is going to be the next Creek Road cleanup. And again, it'll meet at the Oakview Trolley Station. The last one was pretty fantastic. It was great to partner with the Friends of the Swedish Cabin. And it was really an effective cleanup, and we look forward to trying to clear some of further clear the debris and stuff that's along the Creek Road to help make it a more beautiful scenic nature walk for anybody that's interested in using it. So if anybody would like to come out, it will be May 8th, 9 a.m., the Oakview Trolley Station at Creek and Station Roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having that cleanup event. I'm sorry I will miss it because I will actually be at the shredding event that the township's having at the high school at the same time. So we can spread out and represent in multiple locations as we do for council. So thank you. Anyone else have new business? Oh, events planning committee, you guys are having a job fair, right? Can you give us do you have a date for it yet?
May 25th.
May 25th? Ms. Blackwell, when was that again?
May 25th, I believe between 3 and 5, if am I correct?
Okay.
3:30 to 5:30, yes.
3:30.
Blackwell, yeah.
5:30. Okay, great. So if anyone is an employer that's going to be looking to hire people, please reach out to, what's the email address for the events planning committee? I'm sorry, I didn't have it on the top of my head.
One moment, and I will bring that up. It is udcouncileventscommittee@gmail.com.
Okay, great. So if you
and
are
all one word.
Great. And so if you're a business owner and you're looking to hire new employees, please take part in our job fair. And if you're looking for a job, also reach out so that we can register you for the event. So
yeah, we're going to do a little more to promote it, and yeah, we were just kind of ironing out some of the other details, but we will be doing more promotion of it shortly.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure we got a chance to, do a plug. So thank you for all your hard work. Councilman Siddiq, did you have some new business?
Yes, ma'am. I have it. We are having another vaccination 28th of this month, which is next Wednesday, 201 South 69th Street in Upper Darby Islamic Center. And I'm making the flyer by tomorrow or Friday, and then I'm going to share with you. With you means our council president, so we can spread out this message. And it will be Moderna and first dose.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Councilman Gwynn, is that you raising your hand in the edge of the screen? Go for it.
It was. I just wanted to let you know that Margot Davison is having a movie night on Saturday, May 1st, starting at 7 p.m. at Naylor's Run. And I believe she has got Star Wars Episode 9, Rising of Skywalker.
Great.
That's nice.
So Rep Davison's doing a movie night at Naylor's Run. We do, on May 1st, we do have a cleanup on May 1st at Dermont Ave along Naylor's Run, Dermont Ave, South Dermont Ave, and near that little footbridge between Hillcrest School neighborhood and and South Dermont. So, okay, I think that is it. Any one more motion? Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Would like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Sadiq and Gwen. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say your name. Great. Thank you. Thank you for a great meeting. Meeting end at 10:20.